Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto x Momo yaoyorozu x Ochako fem sasuke harem. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by deamondragonsclaw and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Deep within the maximum security prison known to the world as Tartarus, a woman sat on a throne-like chair within her cell, looking at her visitors with a small smile. The woman was one Kushina Uzumaki, the head of the Kitsune clan of the world. Kushina had long red hair and 9 matching tails resting lazily over the arms of her chair. She had pale white skin, from the lack of sun, and deep crimson red eyes. She was currently wearing a blood-red kimono that hung of her shoulders, revealing the top of her ample chest. "Hello Naruto, you're looking well," she purred towards the youngest of her 3 guests. "How's school going, are you ready for UA?" "Of course, I am, I already passed the entrance exam, I'm going to be in the hero course class 1A, Naruto said proudly as he showed her the acceptance letter from UA, getting a smile from her. Naruto was a tall kid of 14, going on 15. He had shoulder-length spiky blonde hair, piercing blue eyes and stood at an even 6'5", which was a little short for the average male Kitsune. He was wearing a pair of black workout pants and a red muscle shirt, while 6 tails lazily swayed behind him. "That's good, the hero course means you're one step closer to showing the world that not all Kitsune are bad," she grinned, getting a shiver from Naruto. "As well as help you find potential mates to give me lots of kits to spoil." At that, all 3 of her guests gained a massive sweat drop as she began rambling about kits and Naruto finding mates. "Lady Kushina, you're rambling again," said one of the other 2 guests, Naruto's uncle and temporary head of the Kitsune clan, Kurama. Kurama, aside from being male, was an exact copy of Kushina, seeing as they were twins. He had long red hair, 9 flowing tails and crimson red eyes, though instead of a red kimono, his was a silver color with blue trimming. "Instead of worrying about him finding mates, shouldn't you be more interested in his quirk?" At that, Kushina's eyes narrowed onto her son. "What about his quirk?" she asked suspiciously. Unlike full-blooded Kitsune, who had no need of quirks, Naruto, being half-human, had developed a very interesting ability. He was able to control multiple elements, both those found in nature and some man-made. All full-blooded Kitsune were able to control an element which related to the color of their tails and fur while in fox form, with the most common being fire, earth or ice. Naruto, however, was able to use almost any element, depending on what color his skin and tails became. The only downside so far was that he wasn't able to use more than one at a time. "I was able to use lightning," he said proudly as his tails became a bright golden color and his skin took on a yellowish glow. "Oh, that's wonderful, congratulations." Naruto began glowing a little brighter at the praise from his mom, since he had gone the last 6 years of his life with her locked up, more as a way to appease the masses than anything. At the age of 8, Naruto's father, Minato Namikaze, a hero by the name of the Yellow Flash, was killed by a villain. In a blind rage, Kushina had hunted down and killed the villain and injured a good 20 heroes before she calmed down, including Naruto's uncle Toshinori Yagi, or as the rest of the world knew him, All Might. Because of her actions and the legends of Kitsunes, the government was arguing about labeling all Kitsune, including people born with fox-like quirks, as dangers and having them all rounded up. In order to prevent that and save a lot of innocent people, Kushina agreed to be locked up until Naruto had graduated from UA as a hero. "Yes, young Naruto is doing very well," the 3rd member of their party, Naruto's other uncle Toshinori, said in his muscle form. Toshinori, in his muscle form, was tall, muscular man with short blonde hair, swept backwards, with 2 distinct tufts that stick up above his head, leaning slightly to each side. He was currently wearing his Golden Age hero costume, which consisted of a red and blue color scheme. In fact, he already has a number of pro heroes asking for him when they start doing internships. "That's good, at least with this Kitsune are getting seen in a better light than they were for my mistake." All 3 of Kushina's guests looked down at the mention of her rampage. "You have 5 minutes left," the security guard overseeing the visit informed them. While the guard was not really needed since Kushina was here willingly, it was still protocol for all high-level inmates. "Thanks, Michiru, we're just about to wrap up," Kurama replied, putting a hand on Naruto's shoulders. "Sai, I'm sorry we couldn't stay longer, but since this was an unscheduled visit, you know how they are." Naruto nodded his head. He knew that he was supposed to schedule visits at least a month in advance, but he couldn't wait to tell his mom that he had been accepted into UA High. "Don't worry Naruto, you can always come again, and this just means that we're one step closer to being reunited." A smile spread across Naruto's lips at his mom's words. "And one step closer to having lots of kits running around," and with that his smile was replaced with a large sweat drop, which was mirrored by both his uncles. "Well, that was productive, don't you think?" Naruto glanced at Toshinori as they drove back to Naruto's apartment. Toshinori had dropped his muscle for, making him look kind of like a skeleton. It would have been even more productive if she didn't bring up Kits every time we go to see her, both Kurama, who was driving, and Toshinori chuckled at that. Well Naruto, you have to remember, Kushina is a female kitsune, she can only take one mate every 100 years, your dad was her first mate, and I know she wanted a lot of kits. Kurama glanced at his nephew in the rearview mirror, with a knowing look. Since she couldn't have the large family like she wanted, that responsibility fell to you, as a male kitsune, and seeing as there are only about 7 male kitsune in the world, including you, the pressure is tremendous, and not just from your mom, but our entire clan. Naruto let out a long sigh, he knew his uncle was right, but that was a lot of pressure. Throughout the world, there were only about 250 kitsune, not counting the people who had quirks that made them look like foxes, but actual kitsune, and as one of the few males out alive, pressure was placed on him to help revive the kitsune clan by having lots of kids, since any woman he impregnated would have a litter of at least 6 kids, with any females guaranteed to be kitsune. I know, but it still gets annoying, he huffed, getting another chuckle from the two. And we didn't even get to tell her how my training with One for All is going. Both adults shared a glance at that, seeing as Kushina was against Naruto inheriting the quirk from Toshinori. You know, it's probably a good thing we didn't bring it up. Tashi began sweating thinking of what Kushina would have done if she knew Naruto had accepted One for All. Speaking of, how's your training going, are you still only able to use 5%? Actually, thanks to Granny Mito's training, it's gone up to about 20%, Tashi whistled, that was impressive. Mito Uzumaki was one of the oldest living kitsune around, despite looking like she was in her early 50s, meaning she had a lot of experience, and the fact that she doted on Naruto didn't hurt either. You know, I still don't get why mom fawns over you like she does. If it were anyone else, she would beat them with a stick and tell them to figure thing out on their own. The car fell silent as the three pictured Mito doing that to someone. After that terrifying thought, the rest of the car ride was quiet until they pulled up to the apartment complex Naruto was living in, the Golden Paw complex. Thanks again for taking me to see mom, even though it was short notice, Naruto said as he opened the door to exit the car. It was no problem Naruto, we're always happy to escort you to her, Naruto smiled at Kurama's words, knowing they were sincere. Remember Naruto, you start classes at UA tomorrow, so don't be late and don't let the fact that you're a kitsune bother you. I know many people are still nervous around actual foxes, but don't let it get to you, nodding at Tashi's words, Naruto closed the door, waving as it drove away. I take it you had an enjoyable visit with Kushina today. As Naruto entered the lobby of the complex, he looked over to see Mei Terumi sitting at the manager's desk wearing a small smile. Mei was the landlady of the Golden Paw complex and a four-tailed kitsune. She had long auburn hair and green eyes. She was one of Kushina's closest friends and was always kind to Naruto. Yeah, it was good, though too short for my liking, Mei nodded at that. She knew Naruto and his mom liked to talk or just sit and enjoy each other's company. So, did anything interesting happen while I was out? Not really, the twins took over another empty room, this time on the 3rd floor, and Makoto yelled at Sasuke again. Apparently she applied to UA as well. She managed to get in, Hero Course Class 1A, though the damage she caused in the testing area was a little extreme. Naruto shook his head at hearing that, though he didn't expect any less. Makoto was another kitsune who lived in the complex with her 2 daughters Itachi, who was a collage student, and Sasuke, who was the same age as Naruto. You know, I'm not surprised, Sasuke really doesn't know the meaning of restraint. He looked away as Mei gave him a blank disbelieving look. Anything else? Oh yeah, you know the new girl that moved in about a month ago, the one that lives in apartment 515, Naruto nodded. He had seen the girl around before, but had never talked to her. She was one of the few non-kitsune living in the complex. Well, apparently she got into UA as well, Hero Course 1 as well. Her name's Ochako Uraraka, she told me about it when I went to collect the rent for this month. Why does that name sound familiar? Well, I guess I should go congratulate my new classmate on making it in. With a wave Naruto headed towards the elevator. The Golden Paw was a rather small complex, it had 6 floors. The ground floor which had a common area for tenants to mingle and hold celebration, while the other 5 floors were for the residents, each floor having 15 apartments, though most of the rooms were empty, since over half of the residents were kitsune, and a lot of the population were scared of them after the rampage Kushina went on. Let's see, 515, looks like this is it. Arriving outside the apartment Naruto knocked on the door and he didn't have to wait long for it to be answered. As the door opened, Naruto's eyes widened in surprise, something the occupant of the room mirrored as she stared at him. The occupant, Ochako Uraraka, was in Naruto's opinion rather cute. She was a short, yet seemed to have a slender curvy figure, fair skin with a perpetual blush on her cheeks, large brown eyes and shoulder-length brown hair that curved inwards at the ends. She was currently wearing a pair of grey sweats and a black tank top, which hugged her figure. It's you, the one from the exam, they shouted in surprise, pointing at each other. For a few seconds neither of them said a thing before they both burst into laughter. Sorry, I didn't mean to shout like that, I just didn't expect you to be the girl I helped in the exam, Naruto chuckled, scratching the back of his head in embarrassment. It's alright, though I never expected you to be the person who helped me and that other kid, she blushed at the memory, she had been trapped by some rubble when a giant robot appeared, then before she could do anything a boy appeared in front of the robot and with a single punch, blew it away, before falling. Just before he would have hit the ground, she had used her quirk to stop him from falling, using the last of her strength and passing out. Thanks for saving me by the way. It was no problem, I should be thanking you, if you didn't stop me from falling, I would have been hurt a lot worse, she blushed at his gratitude, not feeling she really deserved it. By the way, my name's Naruto Uzumaki, it's nice to meet you. Ochako, you're Raka, nice to meet you too, she smiled as they shook hands. So, was there something you needed? Not really, just that the manager mentioned that you passed the entrance exam and got into Hero Course 1A, so I thought I would come introduce myself to my new classmate, though I didn't expect it to be you, her eyes widened in excitement. So you passed as well, that's awesome, I guess that means we're both officially UA Hero Course students, her smile seemed to be contagious. I hope we can be friends. Yeah, me too, he chuckled as he turned to leave. Well, I should let you get some rest. Classes start tomorrow, and we don't want to be late on the first day. With a smile and wave, Naruto returned to his room and got ready for bed, a smirk on his face as he drifted off to sleep, wondering what his first day of UA would be like. Big brother, mom says it's time to wake up, Naruto gasped as two identical weights landed on him, waking him from his slumber. Glancing down, Naruto found the cause of his impromptu wake-up call in the form of the twins, Fuka and Fumika. Fuka and Fumika were the twin daughters of Mei and her husband Kakashi, otherwise known as the copy hero Kakashi. Both girls were 5 years old with auburn hair like their mothers, though Fuka liked her hair in pigtails, while Fumika preferred buns, and dark gray eyes like their father. Both were wearing matching Maiko outfits, though Fuka's was red and white, while Fumika's was blue and white. You know, you didn't have to jump on me, Naruto groaned as the two simply beamed at him, their tails waving in a mischievous way. But this way is more fun, they cheered as they ran from the room, getting a sigh from the elder Kitsune, before he got dressed for the day in his new school uniform. Man, it looks like I have to think of a way to get those two back for this, Naruto thought as he arrived at UA for his first day of school, though he now only had 5 minutes to find his classroom. Upon reaching his classroom, Naruto took in a few calming breaths before opening the door and blinking in surprise at the sight of his classmates all talking with each other, though the thing that caused him to pause was Satsuki, or Sasuke as she preferred to be called, wearing male uniform, while leaning back in her chair, completely ignoring a boy yelling at her to get her feet off the desk. Would you shut up, you're annoying, Satsuki narrowed her eyes at the boy who was going on about rules or something. Satsuki had long spiky black hair and onyx black eyes. Even though she was female, she was a major tomboy, wearing only male cloths and preferring to be called Sasuke, after her grandfather, a hero who died in a fight saving people. Who are you anyways, you should really introduce yourself before you start barking orders at others. If you must know, my name is Tenya Ida, Tenya stammered out, likely not used to people talking back to him like Sasuke was. Sasuke, would you stop causing trouble for others? The whole room fell silent as everyone glanced over at him before whispers began to replace the silence. You're not the boss here, Naruto, so don't act like it. Despite that, she took her feet off the desk, turning to look away from Naruto, getting everyone to sweat drop. Right, well, greetings, my name is Tenya Ida, Naruto blinked as Ida appeared in front of him, a serious look on his face. You're Naruto Uzumaki, correct? Naruto slowly nodded at the question. I wish to apologize, I misjudged you at the entrance exam, however you realized the true nature of the test, while I did not. I didn't realize anything though, Naruto chuckled nervously as Ida's behavior. Oh, hey Naruto, everyone glanced at the door as Ochako appeared with a smile. I'm glad I'm not late, my alarm clock didn't go off and I overslept a little, she chuckled sheepishly. Well, you could always ask the manager to have the twins wake you up, Satsuki's eyes widened at that and she desperately tried to signal to Ochako not to do it. If you're here to socialize then you can get out now, both Naruto and Ochako, who were still standing in the door, froze, before turning to find a gruff-looking man in a sleeping bag laying on the floor in the hall. This is the hero course, a place to learn to be great heroes, not to act like normal high schoolers. This guy looks familiar, but I can't place from where, Naruto thought as he took his seat along with the rest of his classmates. He's got to be a pro though, otherwise he wouldn't be teaching us. I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Izawa, pleased to meet you, this guy's our homeroom teacher. Everyone thought as Izawa reached for something under his desk. Now, quickly change into your gym cloth and meet me out on the grounds. The quirk test. Once everyone had changed and arrived on the field, Izawa had informed them that they would be preforming in a quirk test, which surprised everyone. That's right, you'll be doing the same thing you would be in a regular gym test, softball throwing, standing long jump, etc. Only this time you'll be using your quirks. Everyone seemed excited about being able to use their quirks, since normally it was against the law to use them outside of the home. This country still insists on prohibiting quirks for these tests, trying to pretend that everyone's the same. It's not rational, especially if you're trying to find out the limits of your powers. Uzumaki, what's the farthest you could throw back in middle school? 82 meters, Aizawa nodded before tossing him a baseball. Great, now try throwing it using your quirk. He motioned Naruto to the area he was to throw from. You can do whatever you want, just don't leave the circle. Nodding his head, Naruto turned away from the class, releasing all 6 of his tails, surprising many of the other students, before his body and tails became a light green color. Alright Naruto, you can do this, just like Granny Mito taught you. As power began coursing through him, everyone shielded their faces as a strong wind began blowing around him. One for all, 20%. Taking a deep breath, he pulled back his arm, preparing to throw the ball. Slicing winds throwing with all his might, with wind swirling around the ball, Naruto kicked up a large cloud of dust as the ball shot out of his hand with the force of a cannon, a loud boom being heard as the ball left everyone's field of vision. It's important for us to know our own limits, that's the first rational step to figuring out what try of hero you'll be. Aizawa held up a tracker, showing the results of Naruto's throw being 2039 meters. Event number 1. 50-meter dash. For the first test, everyone ran in groups of 2, the first pair was Ida and a girl by the name of Tsuyu Asui. Ida's quirk was called Engine, it gave him exhaust pipes on the back of his legs and allowed him to run at incredible speeds. Tsuyu's quirk, Frog, basically gave her the physical abilities of a frog. The second pair to run were Ochako and a boy by the name of Rock Lee. Ochako's quirk was called Zero Gravity, it allowed her to control the gravity of anything she touched. Rock Lee was a tall boy, he had a black hair and a bowl cut, black eyes and really bushy eyebrows, which made him stand out in a crowd. His quirk was called 8 Gates, a strength-enhancing quirk. For every gate he opened his strength and speed were doubled, though the drawback was the strain each gate put on his body. The third group to run was a girl by the name of Mina Shido and a boy named Mashirao Jiro. Mina, a really cute girl in Naruto's opinion, had pink skin and hair with 2 little horns on her head and yellow eyes with black sclera. Her quirk was called Acid, it allowed her to secrete acid from anywhere on her body, it was also the reason her skin was pink. Ajiro was a boy of average height with short blonde hair and brown eyes, his quirk Tail basically gave him a powerful looking tail which he had great control over. The fourth group to run were Naruto and Satsuki, with everyone watching as both of them released their tails and ears, causing all the girls to blush at the sight of them, cute being the collective thought. You ready to lose Naruto? Satsuki smirked as lightning began to spark over her body. Satsuki was rather uncommon among Kitsune, seeing as she was born with the ability to use 2 elements, which any other Kitsune had to work at. Her tails were bright red, indicating her control over fire, though the tips of her 5 tails was a bright golden blonde, indicating her unusual ability to control lightning. In your dream, Naruto's skin and 6 tails all became a bright golden color as electricity covered his body, clashing with Satsuki's as they prepared to run. As the sound of the signal to start, everyone's jaw dropped as both Kitsune appeared at the end in a flash before the lightning that was arcing across their bodies faded and they both dropped to their hands and knees panting. Second event. Grip strength. For the second test, everyone was given a grip machine which was designed to tell them their strength level. Alright, I can do this, no problem. Naruto's skin and tails became a dark silvery color, becoming as hard as steel. Just remember to breath and let the power flow through me, activating One for All at 20%. Naruto glanced down as the machine let out a beep, indicating his strength in his steel form, with One for All to be 720 kilograms. Wow, that's impressive, and I thought I was strong. Naruto glanced over at the speaker, Mizo Shoji. Shoji was taller than average and rather muscular, he had pale gray hair and black eyes. His quirk, Dupli Arms, he has a set of tentacles alongside his arms, the tips of which can be transformed to mimic other parts of his body, such as his mouth, ears and eyes. Thanks, just lucky I guess. He glanced at Shoji's score of 540 before glancing over at a panting Lee, whose score was 800 even. As the test continued, Naruto continued to watch and learn what he could about his new classmates, as well as see the interesting things everyone else was able to do. As well as make mental notes on all the girls in his class, all of whom were really cute. Let's see, there are 20 of us in this class, giving us 20 unique skill sets to work with, Naruto thought as he glanced around at his classmates. He had snuck a peek at Aizawa's seating chart and made a mental list of everyone by seat number. Seat number 1 belongs to Rock Lee, with Mina Shido in seat number 2, Tsuyu Asui holds seat number 3. He glanced at Tsuyu. A short girl with a relatively slender build compared to the other girls, with notably large hands, a very wide mouth, oval-shaped eyes with large black irises. She also demonstrated some frog-like mannerisms, such as hopping on all fours instead of running and holding herself in a way that is somewhat connotative of a frog. Though it made her look even cuter when she did. She has very long dark sea green hair. Ida has seat number 4 with Ochako taking seat 5, Ejiro is in seat number 6, and Kaminari is seat 7. He glanced over at Denki Kaminari, a rather average-looking kid with blonde hair, thought it had a streak of black like a lightning bolt and yellow eyes. His quirk electrification, which allows him to generate electricity and cover his body in it. Seat 8 is Kirishima Ejiro Kirishima, an average-looking kid with spiky red hair, red eyes and pointed teeth, his quirk hardening, which allows him the power to harden and sharpen any or all parts of his body to rock-like density. Seat number 9 is Gargara no Sabaku, had short spiky red hair and green eyes with black rings around them, seeing as he was part of the Tanuki clan, though like Naruto he had a quirk which was something that the Tanukis didn't need. Gaara's quirk magnet allowed him to magnetize things and control them. We have Haku in seat 10. Hakuyuki, like Satsuki, was a tomboy who was wearing a male uniform in class. She had long black hair, dark brown eyes, and was rather slender with pale skin, which was thanks to her quirk Yuki-Oni, which allowed her to create and manipulate ice at will. Shoji has seat 11, and in seat number 12 is Jiro Kyokajiro, a petite fair-skinned girl with a slender build, onyx eyes, chin-length dark purple hair and flexible plug-like earphone jacks hanging from each of her earlobe, which was part of her quirk earphone jack, which when plugged into something allows her to channel the sound of her heartbeat into it in the form of a violent vibration attack or allows her to hear minuscule sounds and vibrations from her surroundings. In seat 13 is Kamimuro Kagaya was tall with long white hair, green eyes and 2 dots on his forehead. His quirk dead bone allows him to manipulate the bones inside his body either by pulling them out to use as weapons or coating his body in bone like a suit of armor. Tokoyami has seat 14. Fumikage Tokoyami was probably the most interesting among the group since instead of a regular human head, his head resembled that of a raven. Another interesting thing was his quirk Dark Shadow, which allows him to manifest a sentient shadow monster from his body that he can materialize and contract freely. 15 is Shota Todoroki, a reasonably tall muscular boy. He has long hair, though it doesn't pass his neck, which is evenly split between 2 colors, white on his right side and crimson red on his left. His left eye is turquoise, while his right is dark gray, though his is indication of his quirk half cold half hot, which gives him the ability to generate ice from the right side of his body and fire from his left side. There's Kuritsuchi in seat 16. Kuritsuchi Kamizuru, a slender girl with short black hair and distinctly pink eyes. Her quirk Lava allows her to create and control lava at will. Satsuki holds seat number 17 while I hold 18, Shikamaru holds 19. Shikamaru Nara, a rather lazy kid with narrow brown eyes and shoulder-length black hair tied in a spiky ponytail. His quirk shadow manipulation allowed him to control his shadow by making it into a shield or weapon, even controlling others when his shadow connects with someone else's. And finally, Momo in seat 20. Momo yaoyorozu is a fairly tall girl with a rather mature physique. She has long black hair that is normally tied into a spiky ponytail and onyx eyes. Her quirk creation, which gives her the ability to create any non-living material object from her exposed skin by transforming the molecular structure of her fat cells, though in order to create something, she needs to understand the molecular structure of what the material object is made of. This could be a lot of fun. Naruto smirked as he watched his classmate, his mind going over the best ways to befriend them before shaking his head to clear it of those thoughts as he joined his class as they headed back inside to change, having all had an interesting first day and each wondering what would come in the following years. Fumika, you two are so dead. Momo yaoyorozu's eyes snapped open and she sat up in a small panic at the shout from her classmate and apartment mate, Naruto, as he chased the landlady's twin daughters around, their laughter echoing through the complex. I don't think I'll ever get used to that, Momo thought as she glanced around at her new bedroom inside her new apartment 510 of the Golden Paw complex. It had been a little over a week since she had started at UA with Naruto and her other classmates, and in that week, something very strange had happened. Within the 1 week that she had known Naruto, she had gained a major crush on the boy, love at first sight if you will, and it wasn't just her, a lot of girls seemed to have fallen head over heels for the young Kitsune. On the 3rd day of class, while she was cleaning up the classroom with Naruto, she had decided to ask him about it, trying to make it sound like whatever was causing her and the other female students to act like swooning schoolgirls wasn't affecting her, though the blank look she received from Naruto told her he wasn't buying her act. Reluctantly, after she pinned him down using her quirk, he explained that male Kitsune, when they reached the age of 15, which was when all Kitsune were old enough to mate and reproduce, released a pheromone to attract strong females to them, though they have no way to control this, since it was part of their nature. He also explained that the pheromones from a full-blooded male Kitsune had no effect of human women even after quirks appeared and humans with fox-like features began appearing. However, since he was only half Kitsune, the pheromones affected all females, both human and Kitsune, which was why all the girls around him began acting strangely around him, even the teachers. Since the initial embarrassment of the conversation had passed, she had asked if he knew how long the effects of the pheromones lasted or if there was a way to cancel the effect, though she almost passed out from the mental image when he told her that the pheromones lasted for a full month twice a year and that the only way he knew of to end the effects early was for him to sleep with someone. A day after that, admittedly awkward conversation, she had found herself moving into the Golden Paw apartment complex. When Naruto had asked her why, she told him, her face scarlet the entire time, that it was a hero's job to help those in need and protect others from harm, and his pheromones counted as harmful, though unintentionally, to everyone around him, including himself, so she was going to do whatever it took to protect him from himself. And every hormonal woman affected by his pheromones, by any means necessary, though she did want to get to know him better before they did anything. The rest of the week after that, while awkward because of the small fits of jealousy caused when other girls talked to Naruto, something she attributed to the pheromones, was rather pleasant. Since the first week was mainly to get them used to their new school, she had ample time to learn more about Naruto, slowly working up the nerve to help him end his mating cycle early, something he mentioned would lessen after his 18th birthday and after he had all 9 tails. Which was when he would become a pure-blooded Kitsune. No, bad Momo, stop thinking of that, you barely even know the guy, she thought, trying to shake the image of her standing next to Naruto, 9 tails waving behind him, as he held onto a daughter of about 3, while she held a baby boy in her arms, while a slit bulge in her stomach showed the product of their love. No, get out of my head with steam coming out of her ears, she ran to the bathroom for a cold shower. You know, pink is a really good color on you, it really brings out your eyes. Oh, maybe you should make pink your permanent hair color, Naruto sighed as he walked to school with Momo and Ochako, while being bombarded with questions and comments about his new hair color, remnants of the latest prank pulled on him by the twins, by third-year Nagira Hato, a sweet girl in his opinion but a complete airhead, whom the trio had encountered on the way to school. He had met the third year on the second day of school, along with the other members of UA's Big Three, Morio and Tamaki, who had been dragged along by Nagira in order to talk to him, mainly about his reasons for coming to UA and to see if he was really a Kitsune. I'm not going to change my hair color, besides, changing the color of your fur is considered an insult in the Kitsune clan, Nagira pouted at that before going off on another topic, only to stop and run off as the group reached the school and she spotted Morio and Tamaki. I thought those questions would never end, Naruto sighed, getting a small giggle from the other two. You know she's right though. The pink really does bring out your eyes, the giggling intensified as Naruto glared at Momo before his skin turned blue and he tossed a ball of water into the air above him, which crashed down on his head, removing the pink-haired eye. As I've already mentioned, a Kitsune's fur and tail is their pride, and it's considered disgraceful to change the color of it without reason. Both girls rolled their eyes at that as Naruto absorbed the water back into himself before returning to normal. We know that we're just teasing you a little, Ochako smiled at him, the blush that already adorned her cheeks deepening upon realizing how close she now was to him. Anyways, we should hurry and get to class, don't want to miss the first day of basic training, getting a nod at that the three headed towards their classroom. I am here, coming through the door like normal, Naruto and Satsuki both slammed their heads on the desk in embarrassment as All Might entered the classroom getting excited cheers and murmurs from the rest of the class. Why does he have to announce himself like that everywhere he goes? Both Kitsune wondered as the symbol of peace stood at the front of the class, grinning like the idiot he was. Like Naruto, Satsuki knew about All Might, she even knew about One for All, though that was only because she had grown up with Naruto, and by extension All Might. Hero Basic Training, the class that will put you through all sorts of special training to mold you into heroes. More excited murmurs began filling the room, seeing as everyone was excited for this class. No time to dally, today's activity is this, he held up a card for them. Battle training, and for that you need these. Without any warning, hidden panels in the wall began to open up, each one holding 5 metallic cases numbering 1 to 20. In accordance with the Quirk registries and the special forms you all filled out before being admitted costumes, All Might blinked as the entire class cheered in excitement at being able to wear the costumes they had designed and sent in upon their acceptance to UA's hero course. After you have all changed, come out in ranking order to ground beta, okay, All Might chuckled a little as he left the classroom, he could feel the excitement radiating off of the kids, including Naruto. They say the costume makes the hero, and you my young students are proof, All Might smirked as he eyes the costumes his students had designed, and he had to admit he was impressed. Everyone's is the same as in the manga, so I'm only going to describe those from the Naruto verse. Gaara's costume was interesting to say the least. He was wearing a black bodysuit, something that seemed common amongst most heroes, a red belt around his waist with a red line going up his chest before splitting up to both shoulders. A dark brown traveling cloak fluttered in the wind behind him, with a hood covering his face in shadows, though a black mask could be seen covering his eyes, and a light brown tail waved lazily behind him. Haku's was rather surprising, in that it looked so ordinary. She was wearing a white kimono that hung of her shoulders and stopped just above her knees, with wide sleeves and a blue obi holding it closed. Though you could tell she was in hero mode, since her hands and feet were coated in a thick sheet of ice, designed to look like claws. Rock Lee was wearing a simple green bodysuit with, strangely enough, orange leg warmers over, orange combat boots, and orange grappling gloves. Himimaro had also gone with a simple costume, wearing only a pair of black pants and a matching vest, though the thing that stood out was the belt on his waist, which held a number of short white dagger-like bones. Kuritsuchi, like Haku, was wearing an outfit you wouldn't think of for fighting. She was wearing a red sleeveless dress that is kept open on the front right side from the waist down, revealing her right leg, a pair of black fingerless gloves, and a small pouch on her left hip. Shikamaru's costume seemed to lack motivation. He was wearing a pair of black pants and grey shirt under a black trench coat, though All Might could see he thought of practicality as well, seeing as he was wearing a belt with a number of flash grenades on it. Satsuki was wearing a black kimono, similar to Haku's, over a blood-red skin-tight bodysuit. She had a pair of black fingerless gloves and a pair of black jettas, with a hiltless sword strapped across her back and a dozen kunai strapped around her thigh. Naruto's costume caught the attention of everyone, getting a blush from all of the girls present. He was wearing a pair of black hakama pants and black combat boots, though no shirt. He had a pair red fingerless gloves, a blood-red haori, depicting a moon with 9 tomo over a roaring sea, and a white ceramic fox mask with 3 red strips, 2 covering the eyes, while the third split the mask evenly. "Well, shall we begin, my young wards?" Everyone nodded with determination on their faces. "Excellent, because it's time for battle training. So, you ready to do this?" Naruto smirked as Satsuki moved beside him, an eager look on her face. "Oh, you know it, just don't cry when you lose," Naruto returned the confident look, an air on pressure settling on the rest of the class as the two Kitsune glared at each other. "Sensei, isn't this the same area we had the entrance exam? Does that mean we'll be preforming cityscape maneuvers?" Ida asked, getting everyone to notice that he was right. It was the same setting as the entrance exam. "On the contrary, you'll be moving on to something a little more challenging." The class all tensed up in anticipation. "Today, boys and girls, you'll all be participating in indoor anti-personal battle training." While the tension didn't dispel, All Might noticed many of the class sharing confused looks. "You see, well, most villain battles take place outdoors. The truly heinous villains are those that remain indoors, such as those who take hostages or black market dealing. These criminals hide in the shadows and observe the goings-on around them before making a move." Everyone was paying attention, and they all seemed eager. "So, for this exercise you'll all be split into hero teams and villain teams and engage in a mock 2-on-2 battle. In this scenario, the villains have hidden a bomb somewhere inside a building. It's up to the heroes to capture the villains and disarm the bomb before time runs out." Everyone's sweat dropped as All Might began reading out of a little book. Seems he wasn't as prepared for his first class as he should have been. "The rules are simple. You can fight however you want, though nothing lethal." At this he glared at Satsuki, who had the decency to blush. "The heroes win if they either capture the villains in a special capture tape or if they manage to get the bomb before time runs out. In contrary, the villains win by capturing the heroes or stalling them until time's up." After the explanation he pulled out 2 boxes, explaining that the teams would be determined by a random draw, as would whether the teams would be heroes or villains, and which teams would be facing each other. The teams were as followed. Team A consisted of Naruto and Momo as heroes versus Team E of Satsuki and Shikamaru as villains. Team B of Ochako and Lee as heroes versus Team H of Tsuyu and Tokoyami as villains. Team J of Haku and Shota as heroes versus Team C of Kuritsuchi and Jiro as villains. Team G of Kimimaro and Shoji as heroes versus Team F of Gaara and Ida as villains. Team D of Kaminari and Mina as heroes versus Team I of Ejiro and Kirishima as villains. Alright, now that the teams have been decided, let's have the first 2 teams get into their starting positions while the rest of us head to the viewing room." At his words, everyone headed towards the location All Might had instructed, though only Momo, Ochako, and All Might noticed the sparks flying between the 2 Kitsune. Momo watched, eyes wide, in surprise, fear, and even a little arousal, something she was fairly sure her classmates were feeling as well, though she assumed only the girls were feeling the arousal. The reason for this strange mix of emotions was simple. Both Naruto and Satsuki were locked in a struggle, their eyes glowing a deep crimson color as sparks flew between them. Naruto's claws, his body coated in steel, against Satsuki's blade, which was coated in lightning. Barely 5 minutes after the mock battle had started and they had arrived on the second floor of the 5-story building, Naruto had pushed Momo out of the way, already coated in steel, as a sword sparked across his back, Satsuki holding the other end, her eyes glowing red. That simple act sparked a frightening and awe-inspiring dance between the two Kitsune. "Come on Momo, move," Naruto already knew something like this would happen, "you got to get to the bomb," while Naruto holds of Satsuki Momo yelled in her head as she tried to get her legs moving, though they refused to move, the trickle of liquid slowly moving down her leg wasn't helping much. "Don't worry Momo, I've got this, just leave Satsuki to me, you go get that bomb," Naruto's words caused something to click inside Momo's head as her legs began to move. With one last glance at the dancing Kitsune, Momo broke out into a mad sprint for the stairs, a strong desire to prove how useful she could be. Within the observation room, All Might and the rest of the class watched in awe and arousal for the female students as Naruto and Satsuki fought with the intensity of beings far stronger than most. "Well, it looks like their training is going well," All Might thought as Naruto threw Satsuki through a wall, as his skin changed from silver to white before he shot a blast of ice from his hands, which collided with a jet of flames from Satsuki. "Though it seems it still takes him at least a full minute to change elements, I'll need to ask Lady Mito about it." "Wow, look at them go, this is unreal," All Might smirked as Kirishima's comment, "if this little display was enough to shock them, then these kids were in for a long 3 years. If they're this good already, think of what they'll be like in a few years," ribbed at Sayu's comment, everyone gained a quick image of the two a few years older, both taking down villains with ease. "True, but there's another thing you're overlooking," everyone, even All Might, glanced over at Tokoyami, curious to hear what he meant. "If they're already this good now, think of how hard they'll likely push all of us." Eyes nearly popped out of everyone's heads, and All Might swore he heard a few pops as all heads turned back towards the monitor. "Man, what on earth are those two doing?" Shikamaru asked as slammed into a pillar as the building shook with the force of an explosion. "Having fun by the sounds of it," Momo chuckled as she leaned against her own pillar at the opposite end of the room where the bomb was held. She had arrived at the room only moments before where she found Shikamaru waiting casually by the bomb, an industrial light standing on either side of the bomb. "If this is their idea of fun, I'll skip the party invites, troublesome foxes," Momo snickered at his complaining, especially the troublesome fox bit he muttered at the end. She had a feeling that would be something he said a lot in the coming years. "I don't think they're that bad," as another tremor racked the building, Momo used her quirk to create a number of smoke bombs. As the trembling began to subside, she bolted from behind her pillar, flinging the smoke bombs wildly as she headed for the bomb. "Oh no you damn, what is this?" Shikamaru gasped as the smoke now filling the room began to burn his throat, his eyes watering from the burning sensation, before he hit the floor as Momo tackled him to the ground, a gas mask on her face. "It's a pepper spray smoke bomb, designed to incapacitate an opponent," she said as she began binding him with the capture tape before placing another gas mask on his face. "It's non-toxic, but it will leave you with a burning sensation in your throat for a while." Once Shikamaru was securely bound, she walked over and touched the bomb. "The hero team wins." At All Might's announcement she let out a sigh of relief before shirking as she was picked up and spun around by Naruto, who was missing his Hyorin mask. "Alright, I knew you could do it Momo." As Naruto stopped spinning her, Momo, her face already scarlet from how close he was to her, felt the last ounce of self-control she had leave her, along with her sense of reason, as she reached up and pulled his face towards her, smashing her lips with his, causing his eyes to widen in shock, the small amount of restraint he had on his instincts flying out the window. "Sorry, I don't know what came over. Hey, Naruto, put me down." Momo shirked and wrapped her arms around his neck as Naruto, picking her up bridal style, ran and leapt out the window, running all the way back to his apartment. What just happened?" The rest of the students were looking at the screen in shock. They had just watched Momo kiss Naruto, which was shocking by itself since they were all still getting to know one another, before Naruto, a glazed look in his eyes, carried Momo to a window and disappeared to who knows where. "Thanks a lot Naruto, I'm definitely going to hear about this later." All Might, sweat covering his face, facepalmed at the sight of Naruto running off with Momo after said girl kissed him. Why did his mating cycle have to be during this month? Why couldn't it have been last month? "Do you think they'll be alright?" All Might glanced at Uraraka, who had moved to stand next to him with a worried look on her face. Over the weekend Naruto had called and told him about Momo learning about his mating cycle and that he had also told Ochako about it as well, since she lived in the same apartment complex as him. "Don't worry, I'm sure everything is just fine." All Might let out a small sigh as everyone seemed slightly reassured by his words, Ochako nodding her head in a way that let him know she understood what he meant. "Now, let's get back to training. We still have 8 more battles to go, and after the battle you all just witnessed, I want you all to go plus ultra." Everyone nodded at that, each waiting for their turn to prove they had what it took to be in the hero course. I am so sorry, I hope you can forgive me. It was the morning after their first combat training class, and Naruto was currently begging for forgiveness from Momo and surprisingly Ochako, as the three sat in the nurse's office at UA, while recovery girl and Tsunade, a cousin of Naruto's and a seven-tailed Kitsune, examined both girls. It's alright Naruto, we know you didn't mean for it to happen. Ochako gave him a bright smile, causing him to feel even more guilt at having dragged your rocket into this problem. Well, there's some good news and some very strange news. Which do you want first? Tsunade snapped both girls out of their reminiscing of the previous night, the glow both of them were giving of telling everyone exactly what was on their minds. I think we should hear the good news first. Everyone turned to see Aizawa and All Might walk into the nurse's office with Nezu, the principal, riding on Aizawa's shoulder. Well, the good news is that the charm I placed on Naruto the week he went into his mating cycle works. Until the charm is removed, Naruto cannot get anyone he sleeps with pregnant. The three students all let out a sigh of relief. Well, the previous night had been pleasurable, despite being a product of lust and pheromones, none of them were ready to be parents yet. And what's the strange news? Naruto asked apprehensively, wondering what Tsunade and recovery girl could have found in a checkup that would qualify as strange, especially since almost 80% of the world's population had unique abilities that would have qualified them as strange before quirks. The strange news is that both Momo and Ochako show signs of begin Kitsune themselves. Everyone stared at recovery girl in disbelief at what she had just announced. Despite this being a regular checkup, I had some quick blood work done to make sure there were no negative side effects from the pheromones Naruto released, since Kitsune pheromones aren't supposed to affect humans, and we discovered that their blood is showing similarities to that of Naruto's. We theorized that since Naruto's only half Kitsune, his DNA may contain a form of lycanthrope abnormality, Tsunade said, only to receive blank stares from the students and All Might, while both Aizawa and Nezu seemed intrigued. This means that, because of the DNA both girls received through intercourse, they will, over time turn into Kitsune themselves, and if this is anything like the wolf lycanthrope gene, which hasn't been seen in centuries, then they will both change into full-blooded Kitsune on the night of the full moon, with their bodies adjusting a little with every transformation, until they become Kitsune themselves. So, we'll both become Kitsune like you and Naruto? Ochako asked, wondering what she would look like as a Kitsune. Essentially, yes, however, unlike the wolf lycanthrope gene, which spread like a virus and changed the host almost instantaneously during their first full moon, this one is slow growing and will happen over a number of months, though if I had to guess, I would say you both will be full-blooded Kitsune by the time you graduate, if not sooner. Both girls looked surprised by this information, though Naruto seemed curious about something. You know mom's probably going to kill you when she finds out about your charm, Tsunade, who had just taken a drink of coffee, spread it all over All Might, who was closest to her, paling at the thought of an angry Kushina, which was almost as scary to her as an angry Mito would be, though Mito was much worse. Granny Mito too, though I think she'll be more interested in this lycanthrope thing than anything. True, though let's not tell them about the charm, alright. Everyone could hear the pleading in Tsunade's voice, causing everyone to wonder just how scary the two Kyuubi class Kitsune could be when mad. If you give me a wishing scroll, I promise not to tell. For a few seconds Tsunade looked hesitant before hanging her head in defeat and handing him a small scroll, which he pocketed with a smirk. Alright, well I think we all have a grasp of the situation now, Nezu said, getting everyone's attention. Now Naruto, since I know you have no control over your pheromones, and since Miss Yaoyorozu and your Raka had both already spoken to you about helping you out during your mating cycle prior to this event, there will be no punishment for what has happened. Naruto let out a small sigh of relief, well he didn't really see a reason why he would be punished. Since he had spoken with both girls before and they had both agreed to help him in the future, Nezu gave of the strange vibe that there would be a punishment. However, I would ask that you practice controlling your instincts and desires so that future problems can be avoided. Naruto nodded his head in agreement, having already decided to work on that anyways. Alright, well now that that's all taken care of, you three should head to class, we have a lot to cover today, Aizawa said opening the door and allowing the three students to leave. Man, I can't believe you actually lost control yesterday during class. Naruto glared at Satsuki as the two waited for class to start, Naruto having told her and Gaara about losing control and everything that had transpired since. Momo and Ochako were hounded by Mina and the other girls, who were curious about why the two had vanished after winning the fight. Well, it's understandable, he did beat you, which already had his blood pumping, then he hugged Yaoyorozu without thinking. Those two things combined would undoubtedly lead to everything that transpired. Both Kitsune stared blankly at the Tanuki, who simply shrugged in response. Though this lycanthrope gene is rather interesting, do you think it's only you that has it or could other half-breed, me for example, have it as well? I doubt it, from the way Granny Tsunade explained it, it's not something as common as us. Gaara chuckled at that, since aside from him and Naruto, there were only about 30 half-breeds like them in the world, since they all became full-blooded members of their species on their 18th birthday, or upon meeting special conditions, like Naruto obtaining 9 tails. Alright, everyone settled down. As Aizawa entered the room, everyone headed back to their seats, wondering what today's lesson would be like. Good, now I've already gone over grades and evaluations from yesterday's training, and I have to say, they're much better than I had imagined. Satsuki, Naruto, out of everyone your battle fight was the most intense, and while that's not always a bad thing, you both need to work on your control, right, got it, nodding his head in acceptance, knowing that was likely the best response he was going to get from the two Kitsune, he glanced around the room, an air of anticipation hanging in the air. Now, onto homeroom business, today you'll pick a class president. That's such a normal school-like thing everyone thought as over half of the class lifted their heads from the indents on their desks, having expected something a lot more serious. At once everyone began shouting that they should be the class president, which only stopped when Ida suggested they hold an election to see who should be president, though his suggestion was ruined somewhat by the fact his hand was in the air, as if asking to be chosen for the position. Alright, tell me again, how the hell was I chosen to be class president? Naruto stood at the front of the class, his ears and tails all twitching in pure irritation. On the blackboard behind him was a list of everyone in the class with a number of votes next to them, and Naruto's name had a whopping 7 votes next to his name. Standing beside him was Momo, as vice president, seeing as she got 3 votes. I didn't even want the damn job. Oh man, this is too funny. A pair of glowing red eyes landed on Satsuki, who was laughing at Naruto's plight. Calm down Naruto, it's not that bad. Momo tried to calm him down, since she herself had voted for him. This just means that everyone trusts you enough to lead us when necessary. That's the problem, I don't want to lead everybody, Naruto growled, getting chuckles from the rest of the class. Come on man, being president just means we all recognize your power, especially after the fight you put on yesterday, Kaminari said, getting nods of agreement from the rest of the class. Sighing, since he didn't really see a way out of this position, Naruto agreed to become the class president, though he mentioned that he would leave most if not all of the paperwork to Momo, since he wasn't good at that stuff, which a lot of the class agreed to, seeing as Naruto was currently ranked number 11 in the class, though many of them swears it's because he was as lazy as Aizawa. Ah, young Naruto, want to have lunch? Naruto paused on his way to the cafeteria with Ochako, Momo and Satsuki, who had all paused as well to see All Might poking his head from around a corner. Sure, but only if these two can come along, Naruto gestured at Momo and Ochako, since Satsuki already knew about All Might's secret. They both deserved to know, especially after last night. Both girls blushed and tried to avoid All Might's gaze, though they noticed he looked a little hesitant. Are you sure? The number 1 hero in the world froze as his nephew's eyes began to glow an ominous red, which told All Might that it either happened his way or there would be hell to pay, causing a cold chill to run up and down his spine. Since the last time he ignored Naruto's glowing eyes, his hero costume shredded into millions of pieces during a live interview that was airing worldwide, giving the entire world a view of his junk. Suffice to say he vowed to never piss of Naruto after that day. With another shudder, All Might reluctantly agreed before leading the 4 towards a private room in order to eat lunch. Ochako Uraraka sat in stunned silence, which was mirrored by Momo, as they stared at their teacher and the world's number 1 hero, who currently looked like the polar opposite of how he normally looked. Instead of tall and muscular, he was short and skeletal, which was shocking to her. Half an hour ago All Might had led the 4 of them into a room so they could eat lunch. While they were eating, he explained to her and Momo about being Naruto's uncle, the fight he had a number of years ago, which damaged his body basically beyond repair, and about his quirk, One for All, which he had passed to Naruto, as well as the origin of his quirk and the villain known as by his quirk, All for One. Wow, that's a lot to take in, Ochako stammered out after a few minutes of silence, glancing over at Satsuki who hadn't reacted at all. If you're wondering, I already knew about most of this since I've grown up and trained with Naruto most of my life, though to be honest, I've never seen him in this form. She bit into a tomato she had in her hand while gesturing at his weakened form. Both of you have to understand, this is a very closely guarded secret. Outside of you 4, only about 20 people know of this form, mainly the other teachers, a few higher-ups within the Kitsune clan and some trusted friends, and even fewer know about my quirk, namely the principal, Recovery Girl, Lady Mido, Lady Kushina and 3 other people that I trust with my life. Both girls were shocked that so many people knew about his quirk. The only reason Granny Mido knows about One for All is because she was married to Hashirama Senju, who was the 3rd holder of the quirk, and my mom knows because my dad was All Might's younger brother, Naruto said, showing the girls a picture of his dad standing next to All Might, and they could see many similarities between the two, mainly in the eyes and ears. Alright, but if this is such a closely guarded secret, why tell us about it? Momo asked, clearly confused as to why they were being told something so secretive that almost no one knew of it. Because of how close you both are to Naruto, they glanced at the male Kitsune who tried to avoid their gaze. You see, while you three were in class, I was talking to Recovery Girl about a theory I had regarding what happened to you both. All of them look at him curiously. You see, I think that while Naruto may have already had the lycanthrope gene in him, inheriting one for all may have triggered the gene, since it's passed from person to person, in which case, when you three slept together, Naruto passed a little on one for all to both of you, and since it takes on qualities of its host before it's passed on, you both will gain Kitsune qualities over time, since it's not fully one for all, but simply a fragment. I see, that does make sense in a way. Lady Kitsune did say that the lycanthrope gene hasn't been seen for years. It's possible that with the introduction of quirks in the world, that the gene simply went dormant inside the different species of the world before being awakened inside Naruto. Momo summed up before everyone glanced at Ochako, who had swirls in her eyes and steam coming out of her ears, indicating that All Might's theory had gone over her head. Well, it looks like Ochako overheated, Satsuki chuckled before more steam filled the room, causing everyone to glance at Naruto, who also had swirls in his eyes. And it looks like she wasn't the only one, she sighed before helping Momo escort both Naruto and Ochako to the nurse's office. Mina Shido was, in her opinion, a rather normal girl. She had an interest in romance just like any other girl, and until she found the right boy, she liked to stick her nose into the love lives of her classmates, which lead her to a very juicy yet shocking piece of information regarding her new class president, Naruto Uzumaki, who, in her opinion, would be the perfect catch as far as boyfriends, and her fellow classmates Momo Yaoyorozu and Ochako Uraraka. During lunchtime she had seen her teacher All Might inviting Naruto, Momo, Ochako, and Satsuki to eat lunch, though from the sound of it, his invitation was originally only for Naruto, until the young Kitsune glared at him, and he invited all of them. Normally, a teacher wanting to talk to a student during lunch wasn't anything she took an interest in, however, since it was All Might inviting a group, and only after a glare from Naruto, her interest had been piqued, so using all the stealth skills she possessed she followed them, and what she heard shocked her to her core. Not only had Naruto slept with both Momo and Ochako, but he was the nephew of All Might, had inherited All Might's quirk. But till now no one had any clues as to what it was, and had somehow turned the girls he slept with into Kitsune by sleeping with them. The news had shocked her, never in her life had she imagined something like it. It was so shocking that she had been thinking of almost nothing else since, which has led to her current situation. After leaving school she had mindlessly walked home, barely paying attention to her surrounding, and somehow ended up in an alley on her ass, her school uniform ripped open, showing the world her D-cup-sized breast, though they were still covered by her bra, with an angry Naruto standing in front of her, his eyes glowing blood red, his skin and tails were pure white, and a monstrous growl emanating from his throat as he faced 6 men, all of whom were slowly backing away. You know, Kitsune are very territorial, especially the males. I know for a fact that 2 of them will kill, for nothing more than a dirty look, anyone who messes with what they have claimed as theirs, and the government and police won't do anything about it since it falls under Kitsune laws, so tell me, why shouldn't I kill you all for touching something I consider mine? Mina blushed as Naruto roared the last word. Releasing a blast of wind that knocked all 6 men flat on their ass into yellow puddles, their pants stained and a terrible smell coming from at least 4 of them. With another thunderous roar, which drew the attention of a few passing pros, Naruto prepared to charge, only to snarl in rage as all 6 men passed out, leaving nothing for him to take his anger out on. With one final roar, his body becoming silver in color, Naruto slammed his fist into a nearby wall, which shattered at the force behind it. Taking deep calming breath, Naruto turned to face Mina, his eyes softening as they landed on her, before he removed his jacket, placing it over her shoulders and closing it, in order to give her some modesty. Are you alright, Mina? Tears welling up in her eyes, as everything that had just happened suddenly hit her, she lunged at Naruto, burying her face in his chest as she cried, her entire body shaking in terror. What happened here? Naruto's eyes flashed red again as he shot a glare towards Death Arms, Kamui Wood, and Gang Orca as they arrived on the scene. Naruto, what happened? Naruto's eyes dimmed a little as they fell on Gang Orca, who had been a friend of his dad's and was someone Naruto actually respected. What happened is that those bastards tried to harm what's mine, so if you don't want any more blood spilled here today, you better take the ones who are still alive to jail and make sure they know that if they try to harm anything else of mine, that I will know and I will kill them. Naruto gently picked up a still crying Mina, holding her head to his chest to stop her from seeing the men, 2 of whom he knew were dead, since he could no longer hear their hearts. If you want to know what happened later, you know where to find me. Without waiting for a response, Naruto activated One for All, a green glow covering his body, before he leapt away, Mina in his arms. How are you feeling? Mina shakily accepted a cup of tea from Momo, taking a small sip of the warm liquid as Naruto rubbed her back in a calming and soothing manner. After leaving the alley, Naruto had taken Mina back to his apartment where Momo and Ochako had been waiting. Upon seeing Mina, Momo had instantly begun making a pot of tea while Ochako had called Recovery Girl, who had arrived with Tsunade and another Kitsune named Shizune in a record 10 minutes, followed soon by All Might, Aizawa and Gang Orca. Better now, thanks Momo. Sniffing, Mina placed the cup on the table before curling into Naruto's side, which she had refused to leave since they had arrived. Well, there's no sign of physical damage, so that's some good news. Shizune smiled warmly at Mina, who simply nodded in appreciation. However, while there's no physical signs of damage, I would recommend talking to someone, even if it's just one of your friends here, or you could always come and talk to me. I'll be happy to listen anytime. Thanks, but I'm alright now, Mina tried to assure everyone before her pink cheeks turned scarlet as Naruto kissed her forehead before pulling her into another hug. Mina, I'm sorry about what happened, but I promise if you ever need anything I'll be there for you, no matter what, that's a promise, and I never go back on my word. Mina teared up and slowly nodded into his chest as he gently ran his fingers through her hair, which was surprisingly soft. And if you don't feel comfortable talking to me, Momo or Ochako, Shizune's a therapist, one of the best out there, and I know she'll do everything in her power to help you. Shizune smiled at her nephew's words of praise before taking her leave. Mina, I wish to apologize on behalf of myself and the other pros who were in the area. If we had been a little faster then maybe this whole situation could have been avoided. The 3 female UA students blinked in surprise as Gang Orca bowed his head in apology. And I must apologize to you as well, Naruto. I didn't mean to demand answers like that while someone was clearly in distress. It's alright, Kugo, I know you were just doing your job. Naruto waved of his apology, getting a smirk from the whale hero. Still, this is a major incident and will need to be handled with care, Aizawa sighed from his where he stood by the door. So, you both will have the next 2 days off, but no more. Naruto smirked at Aizawa, showing his soft side. I guess the next thing to do is call Ishido's parents and let them know what happened. We already did that, Aizawa raised an eyebrow, waiting for Naruto to explain. While we were waiting for all of you to show up, I used Mina's phone to call her mom and explained what happened. Unfortunately she's out of the country on for her work and the soonest she said she could be back was in a week and she ordered me to take care of Mina until she returned, so I agreed to let Mina stay here. She'll take my room and I'll take the couch. Aizawa looked disbelieving for a second before agreeing with a sigh and leaving with all of the other adults, leaving the 4 Hero Corps students. Naruto, I want to apologize for everything. Naruto, who had just finished putting on new sheets for Mina, glanced up before looking away, his face now red, as she stood in the doorway to his room wearing only a white t-shirt, which hugged her gorgeous figure, and a pair of light blue panties. I already told you, you don't need to apologize for anything. He moved over and pulled her into a hug, wrapping his tails around her in an attempt to comfort her. But I do, today at lunch I saw you and the others go with All Might at lunch. I let my curiosity take over, and I heard your whole conversation. Naruto blinked, before his eyes widened in understanding that it explained why her scent was at the door to the room they had eaten in, and why she had seemed so distracted during their training. Wow, I can't believe you got your 7th tail. How did you do it? Is it some secret Kitsune ritual? Naruto groaned as he slowly trekked to school, as Najire, who had once again run into him during his morning commute, was once again bombarding him with questions. Since he had his 7th tail on full display, Mina was walking with Momo and Ochako, all 3 chuckling at his discomfort. Their 2 days off had flown by in a blink, though those 2 days did give them time to recover. The day after they had slept together, Naruto had convinced Mina to talk with Shizune about the incident, just for some peace of mind, which she reluctantly agreed to. While Mina was talking with Shizune, Naruto had used her phone to call and talk with her mom again, and after a long talk and the promise of grandkids someday, she agreed to let Mina move into the Golden Paw. So, while Mina was in her session with Shizune, Naruto called up some people, namely Gang Orca and some people from his agency, who were off and had them help him move Mina's things from her home to the apartment next to his. When Mina had finished her session with Shizune, she had returned and learned what Naruto had done, and she showed her thanks by dragging him into his bedroom, where they remained until Momo and Ochako had returned from school, only to be dragged into the bed with them. The second day was also interesting, since Naruto had requested the day off for Momo and Ochako, which was approved by All Might and Nezu, and had taken all 3 girls, with Kurama and Gang Orca acting as chaperones, to meet his mom, who was delighted to meet 3 of Naruto's mates, as well as learn that he had gained his 7th tail, along with that power to use acid like Mina. After meeting Kushina, and by extension Kurama, the 4 Hero Corps students spent the rest of their day off hanging out at places Naruto knew, such as a small cafe which was owned and run by some other Kitsune. Signed Ajire, I don't know how I got my 7th tail, it's not something we know, it just happens, Naruto said, getting a pout from the airheaded upperclassman, which strangely enough made her look really cute. Ah, you're no fun, you need to lighten up. Oh, maybe if you turned yellow you could use lightning. Naruto gave her a deadpan look before turning yellow, allowing sparks to course over his body. Shaking his head at the amazed look of the older girl, before smirking. Faster than most, Naruto shot forward and stole a small kiss from the older girl before bolting towards the school, a yellow flash being the only indication he was there, leaving 3 chuckling first years and 1 blushing third year. You know, if you like him you should tell him, Ochako said as her giggling fit started to subside, causing the blush on the older girl's face to deepen. I want to, I don't know why, I still hardly know him, but when I saw him on the first day of school something just clicked, but every time I try to talk to him I get nervous and the questions just start spilling out, Naruto said, glancing away with a defeated look in her eyes. That's not your fault, Naruto seems to have that effect on a lot of people. Ribbit. The 4 girls turned to find Taya walking up to them, along with 2 girls they knew were from class 1B, but had never really talked to. I felt a pull towards him too, and both Kendo and Shiozaki here have felt it too, that's kind of how we started talking. The now named Kendo and Shiozaki both waved nervously. Saya's right about the pull, I felt it during the entrance exam, and it grew after I saw him school, though every time I try to talk to him my classmates get in the way or he's surrounded by other people, Kendo said with a mild blush. I felt it as well, though I know why we're all drawn to him. Momo, Ochako, and Mina blinked at what Shiozaki said, since they had all agreed to keep Naruto's pheromones secret. My uncle married a Kitsune woman a few years ago, so when I felt the pull towards Naruto, I asked her about it. She told me that male Kitsune release a pheromone that attracts girls towards them. The pheromones only last during their mating cycle. Normally they don't affect humans, but since Naruto is only part Kitsune his pheromones work on both human and Kitsune. So, you mean we only like Naruto because of his pheromones? Naruto sounded heartbroken at that news, before seeing the kind smile on Shiozaki's face. No, I asked her about it, she told me that the pheromones bring out a person's lust and desire, but the way to know if that the emotions are real is to still feel a strong pull toward that person his mating cycle is over. The 3 girls already with Naruto blinked at that, since Kushina had told them the same thing the day before. But how do we know when his mating cycle ends? Sayu asked before glancing over at Momo, who had a deep blush on her face, as she tried to avoid everyone's curious stare, before everything fell into place for Sayu. It already over, isn't it Momo? Kendo, Ibara and Naruto all looked confused at Sayu's words, their confusion growing as both Momo and Ochako slowly nodded their heads. It ended on Monday after the mock battles. Momo tried to avoid Sayu's wide-eyed look, while the other 3 looked confused. You see, Naruto's mating cycle lasts for an entire month, or until he sleeps with someone, she said the last part in a rush that the group of girls almost missed what she had said, though the level of red her face was becoming told them all they needed to know. So that explains why the pull to Naruto isn't as strong as it was before. 7 of the girls jumped in surprise, before turning to find Kuritsuchi, Haku, and another girl from class 1B, Pony Tsunatori, walking towards them from around a nearby corner. Does that mean that you 3 have also felt the pull from Naruto? The 3 nodded at Ochako's question, causing all of them to release a sigh of relief. So, what should we do about this? Should we talk to him or something, ask him how he feels about all of us? Haku asked looking between all of the girls gathered. What if we all gather this weekend to talk about it? Everyone looked at Pony, who shyly looked away and moved to hid behind Haku. I think that would be the best plan. Momo glanced at her phone before her eyes widened in shock. Though we can talk about it later, for now we need to go or we'll be late for class. At her words the others looked at their phones before they all bolted towards the school. Alright, now that everyone's back, we'll be doing something new for basic hero training today, Aizawa said as the class all waited patiently for him to explain today's class. Today, All Might, myself and another member of staff will be supervising today's training, disaster relief, which will train you all for things such as natural disasters, things like floods, fires, landslides and the like. Pushing a button on the wall, the lockers containing their hero costumes appeared. Since today it's up to each of you whether or not you wear your hero suits, many of the students moved over to grab their costumes. Once you're changed I want everyone to meet at the bus. This training site is a bit remote, so it will take us some time to get there. Once everyone had changed, they all gathered on the bus and headed up to the location of their training for the day, the USJ, where they met up with Pro Hero 13. Please tell me this is part of the training. Naruto glanced around at his classmates, many of whom wore nervous expressions as they stood at the entrance to the USJ, watching as a black portal opened up and people began pouring out, numbering at least in the 70s. Everyone get back and huddle up. 13, protect the students. Everyone tensed up and began slowly moving towards the door as Aizawa prepared to defend his students, no matter the cost. Naruto dodged a jet of fire before ducking under a punch, grabbing the idiot that had tried to hit him and throwing him towards a group of the idiots that had thought he would be easy to pick of, knocking out at least 10 of his assailants. Damn, this is getting old fast, Naruto thought as he dodged another jet of fire, glaring at its source, another Kitsune, who was smirking at him as her 5 tails waved lazily behind her. And to think this day was turning out so well, he growled at the other Kitsune, his 7 tails appearing behind him, causing her eyes to widen in surprise at the sight of his newest tail. After seeing all of the villains appear in the center of the USJ complex, Aizawa had ordered 13 to evacuate the students before he jumped off to face them. As the students and 13 headed for the exit, they were intercepted by a villain who introduced himself as a member of the League of Villains, though he was interrupted when Satsuki and Kirishima attacked him, which caused him to warp many of the students to the different training grounds within the USJ. Which led to Naruto's current situation. Naruto, along with Kuretsuchi, had been transported to an area that looked like it had been hit by an earthquake, where they were met by the Kitsune and at least 15 of the villains. Well, would you look at that, looks like Shitstain finally gained his 7th tail, Naruto growled again, getting a smirk from his cousin, Taya Uzumaki. Taya was Naruto's distant cousin, and while he wouldn't really call her a villain, she did like to do whatever she wanted. In fact, the only people she actually listened to were Kushina and Mito. Yeah, well, you know, it helps if you're not a flat-chested bitch. This time Taya growled at the insult, which intensified as Kuretsuchi chuckled at the insult. So, I take it you know this person, Naruto? Kuro asked as she kicked some idiot in the balls before kicking him in the head, knocking him out. Unfortunately, Kuro, meet my flat-chested bitch of a cousin, Taya Uzumaki, or as I call her, Queen Bitch, both dodged a jet of fire that came the 5-tailed vixen. So, tell me Yaya, what are you doing hanging out with weakling like this? I thought you ran with another group of weaklings, what were they called again, the bitchy 4. They were the Sound 4, and a bunch of idiots got themselves arrested a week ago, so I decided to go solo for a while. Then I was told about this, and that you would be here, and you know how much I just love seeing my shit stain of cousin. The tension growing between the two was so thick that Kuro could literally see sparks flying from the friction in the air. Without another word, the two Kitsune charged at each other, changing into giant foxes the size of horses as they went, before clashing like wild dogs, clawing and snapping at each other, which drew the attention of all of the villains that were still conscious and Kuro, who was interested in the fight, having never seen anything like it. So, what are you doing here again? Satsuki lazily asked her opponent, a red-haired 3-tailed Kitsune by the name of Karen Uzumaki, Naruto's cousin. Around them were 20 unconscious bodies belonging to the villains that had appeared with Karen. Taya dragged me here, said she had an easy job with some good pay, never expected her to drag me here, Karen sighed looking around the shipwreck zone, glancing over both Lee and Sayu, who had appeared with Satsuki. So, I take it these are some of your classmates. Yep, this is Sayu Asui, and that's Rock Lee, she motioned to each in turn. You know Kurama's going to be pissed when he learns about this, Karen nodded her head, crying and I'm tears, before her ears perked up and she glanced in the direction Naruto was in. Seems like Naruto and Taya are already fighting, Satsuki glanced in the same direction with a smirk on her face. $20 on Naruto to win. Satsuki snorted, giving the 3-tailed Kitsune a look that basically screamed stupid. You really expect me to bet on Taya, especially when she's up against Naruto? Karen scratched the back of her head in embarrassment as she avoided Satsuki's gaze. So, do you know this girl Satsuki? Lee asked with a small blush on his cheeks, which was mirrored by Karen, causing Satsuki to blink in surprise as her head switched between the two in order to make sure she wasn't seeing things. Yeah, this is Naruto's cousin, Karen Uzumaki. She's the youngest of another male Kitsune, Nagato, Naruto's uncle. Satsuki smirked before her eyes bugged out as Lee took Karen's hand and kissed it, getting a blush out of the 3-tailed vixen. I am never going to let her live this down. Satsuki gained a fanged grin which caused Karen to feel a chill race down her spine. And I know Naruto's going to love hearing about this, especially with how protective he is over. Karen Lee stood up straight as a chill raced down his spine as well. This is nice and all, but shouldn't we go check on the others? Ribbit Sayu asked, reminding her classmates that they were in a hurry, they needed to make sure everyone else was alright. Yeah, I guess you're right. Karen turned to leave, only to stop as a clawed hand gripped her shoulder. Don't think you're getting out of this that easy, Naruto's going to want a word with you. Karen swallowed the lump in her throat as fear of what her cousin would do to her, though she knew it was nothing compared to what he was going to do to Taya. But the defeated Karen, lowering her head in defeat, turned and followed after Satsuki, who, with a smirk, jumped off the boat and started swimming for the shoreline, where she knew Aizawa was busy fighting the rest of the villains. Damn, that was a pain, Naruto panted out as he stood over the unconscious body of Taya, who had actually put up a much better fight than he had anticipated. Since the last time they had fought, she had gone down after about 5 minutes. Are you alright, Naruto? Kuretsuchi asked, pulling a first aid kit out of the pouch on her hip and getting to work bandaging the large gash on Naruto's right arm. Yeah, I'm fine, just a little winded, he panted as he caught his breath, 2 of his tails wrapping around his cousin. Never expected her to put up that much of a fight, she normally doesn't. Once Kuro had finished patching up his arm, which impressed him since he didn't think anyone in their class knew basic first aid, Naruto stood up, pulling Kuro to her feet as well, before heading towards the center of the complex, where he knew the mastermind behind this attack was. "Where are we going now?" Kuro asked since she could see the stairs to the entrance from where they were, which was not the direction Naruto was headed. "We're going to find the mastermind behind this attack so that I can kick his sorry ass." Kuro blinked at that, not having expected that response. "Why, shouldn't we be heading to the entrance to make sure everyone else is alright?" Naruto stopped and glanced back at her, causing her to flinch at the sight of his eyes, which were glowing a light red. "We're heading to the leader because he has already done a number of things that deserve my attention." Kuro looked at him curiously, waiting for him to explain a little. "First, he openly attacked our class, endangering many things I consider mine, you for example." Kuro blushed at that, surprised that he considered her important. She had done her research and knew Kitsune, especially the males, were very territorial and would fight and even kill anything they saw as a threat to what they considered theirs, whether it was an object or a person. Though the thing that sealed his fate was bringing Taya here. "Really, it didn't look like you two got along at all." Naruto let out a throaty chuckle at her keen observation. "We don't, but since Taya is here, that means Karen, her younger sister and the cousin I like, is here." His eyes began glowing even more as his body turned silvery and metallic. "And you don't mess with my cousin and get away with it." With a loud roar, Naruto transformed into a giant metallic fox the size of a small horse. Crouching down to allow Kuritsuchi on his back, Naruto let out another loud roar before shooting off in the direction he knew the leader was in. Tamura Shigaraki growled in annoyance as he scratched at his neck, a bad habit he had that told anyone who knew about it that he was mad, especially after hearing the loud roar that echoed through the facility, telling him that the male Kitsune brat, Naruto, was mad. After infiltrating the USJ, Tamura had enjoyed the amusing sight of his lackeys fighting Eraserhead, since All Might wasn't there like the information he had obtained indicated. While Eraser was busy with the small fries he had brought, his second-in-command, Kurogiri, had left to stop the students and 13 from escaping, which ended with him separating them thanks to his warp gate quirk, though he failed when one student managed to get out of the building. With his plans ruined, Tamura had ordered the weapon he had brought, which was simply called a nomu, to kill Eraserhead so they could leave, which it started to do, before the female Kitsune appeared and removed one of Nomu's arms, saving Eraser, who was carried off by one of the Kitsune he had brought and another student, leaving the female Kitsune and another boy, whose skin was red with a green aura surrounding him. "Well, it sounds like Naruto's pissed." Satsuki chuckled as she looked in the direction of the roar, though her eyes remained on Tamura, a smirk on her face telling him he was dead. "No fair, no fair, no fair." Satsuki chuckled at the reaction of Tamura, who was acting like a spoiled kid losing a video game. "This isn't how things were supposed to go." "Yeah, well, things never really go as planned for people when Kitsune are involved, especially if that Kitsune's Naruto." Satsuki smirked, dodging a punch from Nomu, who was kicked in the face by Lee, allowing her to cut off his arm again, which started to regrow, something that surprised her the first time she saw it. With a roar of its own, Nomu charged at Satsuki before a large cloud of dust enveloped it. As the dust cloud began to settle, everyone's eyes, minus Satsuki's, widened in shock, pinning Nomu to the ground. Its mouth around the thrashing monster's throat was a giant metallic kitsune, the size of a small horse, its eyes glowing an eerie red, while 5 of 7 tails thrashed wildly behind it, the last 2 holding an unconscious figure in them, while the girl clung to its back. With a growl and a swift jerk of its head, the fox released Nomu, who had stopped thrashing around, and slowly stalked over to stand next to Satsuki, before allowing its passenger to climb up, taking the unconscious figure with her. "You know you're late." The fox gave a small smirk, which was mirrored by Satsuki, before both their heads snapped towards the entrance to the USJ, along with that of everyone still conscious, as the doors blew of their hinges. "Fear not, for I am here." The 2 Kitsune smirked even more as All Might marched through the entrance, and one thing everyone noticed right away was that he sorely lacking his trademark smile, indicating he was pissed. With a thunderous boom, All Might vanished from the door before reappearing next to the giant fox, gently placing a hand on its head. "Good job on holding of these villains, now leave the rest to me." The fox shifted back to Naruto, who was glaring at Tamura and Kurogiri, both of whom seemed a bit nervous at seeing the symbol of peace and the fact that Naruto had easily killed Nomu, who had been designed to kill All Might. "You better stop him," Naruto growled, trying to keep his eyes open, while transforming into a fox took only a little energy. Since Naruto was only half Kitsune, the transformation took more out of him than it would have for others, and since he had transformed twice in the same day, the exhaustion was getting to him. "Worry not, young Naruto, they shall not escape." With a nod in his uncle's direction, Naruto let his exhaustion claim him as he fell into Satsuki's arms. Damn, I can't believe they got away. Naruto held up Satsuki, who was leaning up against him, panting in exhaustion, All Might a few feet away in his skeletal form, blood leaking from his mouth. Yeah, but at least the teachers made it in time. The two Kitsune glanced at Cementus, who had created a wall to shield All Might from the other students. After Naruto had passed out, Kurogiri had summoned two more Nomu, who had charged at All Might, though Satsuki, after passing Naruto of Tuli, had intercepted on of the Nomu, leaving All Might to face the other. The thunderous sound of flesh meeting flesh echoed throughout the USJ as All Might and the Nomu traded blows for a good 5 minutes before, channeling One for All, the symbol of peace sent his opponent flying, creating a sonic boom which shattered all the lights in the building. While All Might dealt with his opponent, Satsuki struggled slightly with hers, which was faster than the first one, though she managed to behead the creature when Naruto, who had regained consciousness, froze the ground underneath it, causing it to slip and giving Satsuki her opening. But both the Nomu beaten, Tamura and Kurogiri had decided to attack All Might by combining their quirks, though before Tamura could touch the symbol of peace, a hole appeared at his hand, thanks to Snipe, another teacher, who also shot Tamura in both arms and legs as the two masterminds retreated. Are there any other injuries? All Might asked as Nezu and Midnight approached them, with Midnight moving over to help Naruto and Satsuki, both of whom were leaning against the wall Cementus had created. We're not sure yet, so far it's only you three, Azawa and 13, but the other teachers are spreading out to collect the rest of the students, Nezu said with a small smile, which turned into a look of regret at the sight of the two dead Nomu and the injured students. I think it would be best to get you three out of here and to the nurse's office as soon as possible. So, not including Taya and Karen, or the two creatures killed, there were a total of 72 villains apprehended, though they were all small-time offenders, and aside from you three, the only ones injured were Eraserhead and 13, both of whom are stable for now, a rather tall man with shoulder-length red hair and purple eyes, said as he glanced around the nurse's office of UA, which currently held Naruto, Satsuki, All Might, Midnight and Nezu. Well, that's a relief, at least no one got seriously injured, Midnight said with a small sigh of relief, a sentiment that was shared by the two students. Thanks again for the report Nagato, I hope it wasn't too much trouble to get, the now named Nagato smirked at Naruto, shaking his head at the young Kitsune. No trouble at all, Tsukauchi was more than happy to hand over the report early, especially since it concerned you Naruto. Naruto avoided Nagato's eyes at his statement, while everyone else gave him a deadpan look. So, what's going to happen to Taya? Satsuki asked getting a sigh from Nagato, since they both knew Naruto would personally take over punishing Karen, and nothing either of them said would make a difference. Well, since I know Naruto will want to handle Karen's punishment, she's currently on lockdown under Mei's watch, Naruto gave him an approving nod, telling him he was satisfied for now. Taya on the other hand is a different matter entirely, this is her third strike, and even though I have plenty of influence within the police force, there's only so much I can do, and I've warned her about causing any more disturbances. It must be really bad, Nezu said getting a nod from Nagato, which caused Naruto and Satsuki to wonder what punishment could be so bad or was harsh enough to get through Taya's thick skull. For Taya's punishment, I have sent her to Kagaya's shrine, to work as a shrine messenger for the next 20 years, both Naruto and Satsuki stared at Nagato in pure horror, telling the non-Kitsune in the room that this punishment must be really bad, since both young Kitsune were now pale as sheets. You actually sent her there, don't you think that's a little harsh for her? Naruto stuttered, looking at Nagato as if he had sentenced her to death. Unfortunately, the decision was not up to me, I just agreed to it, again the two young Kitsune shivered, knowing exactly who had made the decision if he hadn't. She contacted me yesterday and told me what was to happen with her, she also ordered that you to go to her Naruto, and for you to take your three mates with you. Naruto fell to his hands and knees, a cold sweat breaking out over his body, while Satsuki, who was glad she hadn't been summoned, gave Naruto a pitying look. Nagato, would you mind explaining why both Naruto and Satsuki look so terrified? Nezu asked curiously, since all three non-Kitsune were wondering what type of punishment could be so bad that both students seemed to fear for it more than anything. The place we're talking about is Kagaya's shrine, the home of the only 10-tailed Kitsune, the mother of all Kitsune if you will, Lady Kagaya Satsuki. At her name both Naruto and Satsuki shivered, curling into balls on the floor. While Kushina is considered the head of the Kitsune clan, Kagaya is the true head, though since she has grown tired of humans, she retired to a temple hidden on a small island in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle, the only way to get to the island being to travel through a torii, though only Kitsune are able to pass through unless invited by Kagaya herself. At this news, the three UA teachers simply gaped at Nagato, the news that there was a Kitsune out there that was stronger than Kushina was mind-boggling. They had all witnessed the destruction Kushina had caused the night Minato was killed, and they had all seen the destruction Naruto could cause. If there truly was someone out there stronger than them, then they all prayed that she would never get mad. So, is there a reason she wants Naruto and his three classmates to visit her? Nezu knew he was probably pushing the limits of what he could be told, but he needed to know if the safety of his students was being threatened. Naruto is unique, amongst the different yokai races still active in the world, Hanyus like him are a rarity, the fact that he has a quirk is even more of an oddity, which has caught the attention of Kagaya. Naruto felt a shiver run down his spine. Because of this, she has selected Naruto to become her mate since he is the first Kitsune, male or female, that has ever shown the potential to gain 10 tails, with Satsuki here being the second. The three teachers' eyes widened at that news, all of them glancing at the two again. Yeah, and every time she calls me, I end up as her toy for the duration of my stay, he glared at Satsuki who sniggered at that. Sigh, did she at least say why she wanted to see us? Yes, actually, as you know, anything related to you must be reported to her, and she was quite interested to hear you had awakened the lycanthrope gene, which was thought to have died out with the wolves over 200 years ago. Because of this, she wants to meet the girls you have transferred the gene to, then teach you how to accelerate the transformation. Naruto's eyes widened at that, he didn't think there was a way to speed up the transformation of Momo, Ochako or Mina. Though he would be lying if he said that part didn't interest him. So when's this meeting supposed to take place? Naruto asked reluctantly, knowing he didn't really have a choice in the matter. If those three are agreeable this weekend, you will leave through a Torii tomorrow, since your class has the next 3 days of, and return in time for your classes to resume. Naruto nodded his head, knowing it would be better to get this over with sooner rather than later. Nagato, would it be possible for me to accompany them? Everyone turned to Midnight with confused look on their faces, wondering where that came from. Normally I wouldn't ask, but I think having a teacher there would be a wise course, if nothing more than as a way to appease the girl's parents. Nagato thought about it for a moment before nodding. I don't think that will be a problem, though I will need to let Kagaya know, otherwise you will just need to meet at the Torii gate at 9 tomorrow morning. He quickly grabbed a piece of paper and wrote down the instructions to get to the Torii gate they would be using. Well, now that that's all taken care of, I should go let the girls know about this little trip. With another shiver of dread, Naruto left the nurse's office in order to tell his three mates about their upcoming trip. Naruto swallowed the lump in his throat as he stood before the Torii gate at the Kano Shrine, a small shrine that was owned by the Kano family, a small clan of Kitsune that helped control the passage between the Kagaya shrine and all the others. Standing behind Naruto were Momo, Ochako, and Mina, all of whom were wearing shrine maiden outfits, which the Kitsune and owner of the shrine, Kanoka, had forced them to wear. You know, you really should learn to relax a little, Naruto. The seven-tailed Kitsune glanced over his shoulder at Kanoka, who simply smiled at her childhood friend. Kanoka was rather short despite being the same age as Naruto. She had long black hair and 3 matching tails, with brown eyes that had a hint of mischief in them. She was wearing her own unique version of the shrine maiden outfit, since she was the priestess of the shrine. Ah, that's easy for you to say, you're not on Kagaya's watch list, he shuddered with anticipation. It wasn't that Kagaya was a scary person, hell, she was probably the kindest person on the planet, unless you pissed her off, then there was basically no force on earth that could stop her wrath. No, what terrified Naruto and many other Kitsune was how obsessive she could be when something caught her attention. Naruto, for example, she would use any and all her resources to keep an eye on the subject of her fascination. It wasn't necessarily stalking, just unnerving. She doesn't invade on private moment, just everyday life. Besides, it's not just Kagaya I'm worried about. Kanoka, realizing what he meant, fell to the ground, clutching her sides, getting confused look from the 3 new Kitsune. Are we missing something? Mina asked as she watched Kanoka rolling around on the ground while Naruto curled into a ball, a small rain cloud appearing over his head. He's not worried about Kagaya. The 3 new Kitsune turned to see a tall man with 9 tails wearing a trench coat and a fedora walking up to them with Midnight walking next to him, wearing her hero costume. You know, Naruto, I thought you would have gotten over this by now. He took a long drag from the cigarette in his mouth before letting out a cloud of smoke. I can't help it, you know what she's like, he shuddered as a shadowy figure appeared in his mind, their eyes glowing an eerie red and an evil smirk crossed their face. Who are you and what are y'all talking about? Ochako asked glancing between the 2 Kitsune. My name is Kurama, I'm Naruto's uncle. As for what we're talking about, Naruto's worried about what his sister will do when she sees you 3. Kurama chuckled at the stunned looks the 3 girls had on their faces. Sister? All 3 Kitsune covered their ears in pain at the volume of the 3 girls' shock, even Midnight winced at the sheer volume. So, he has a sister? Midnight asked glancing at Kurama while the 3 girls pestered Naruto for an answer, since he never mentioned his sister. And a brother, Midnight blinked at that, shocked by the news, especially the part about a brother, since she knew there were only a handful of male Kitsune in the world, 7 if she remembered correctly. Kushina and Minato had triplets, Naruto here is the oldest, though all 3 are oddities. How so? Midnight was curious, since most if not all of Naruto's personal files were classified because of who his mom was. Out of the 3 kits my sister had, 2 of them were male, which is odd in itself, especially since Minato was human, and male Kitsune normally only appear from the union of 2 Kyuubi-class Kitsune. She blinked at that bit of info, since that was not something commonly known. Naruto here was born as a Hanyu and gained a quirk, which Kitsune don't have or need. His brother Menma was born a full-blooded Kitsune, already with 2 tails, something that doesn't happen very often. She nodded, showing she was following along and understood. She had heard that when a Kitsune is born, if it has 2 tails, it was a sign of good luck for the family, though she only knew of about 10 twin-tailed Kitsune born within the last 20 years. His sister, Naruko, was also born with 2 tails. That doesn't explain why he's so nervous, Kurama chuckled at her question, since the answer was really funny. It also doesn't explain why no one knew he had siblings. The reason no one knows about his siblings is because after Minato's death, they were both sent to Kagaya's shrine to be raised and trained. He chuckled again as the Torii gate began to glow. The reason he's so nervous is because, even though she's the youngest of the 3, Naruko's the most powerful, already having all 9 tails, and she's very possessive of her brothers, especially Naruto. So basically, she has a brother complex involving Naruto and takes things too far when she sees him. Kurama nodded at how well she summed up the situation. You know, it's rude to talk about other people, Naruto said, having calmed down after Konoha whispered to him that Menma was in Russia and Naruko was in Hawaii, both on training trips away from the island. Anyways, let's get this over with, we only have 2 days there, so we should make them count. Taking a deep breath, Naruto pointed at the Torii gate, which began to glow, before stepping through and vanishing from sight. Wow, this place is amazing, Naruto chuckled at the awestruck looks that Ochako, Momo, Mina and Midnight were wearing as they exited the Torii gate, followed by Kurama. I guess it's pretty nice, Naruto glanced around. They had appeared in front of a Torii gate, which sat at the top of a large mountain overlooking the entire island. Below them was a rather small city which stretched along the coastline with a large mansion sitting on a cliff overlooking the sea. Many of the Kitsune who live here enjoy it since they can be themselves, that and they can use their powers as much as they like without a cop or pro breathing down their neck until they show them their Kitsune license. The 4 newcomers nodded in understanding. After Kushina's rampage, all Kitsune were required to get a license in order to live among normal people. Man, I wish I had brought a swimsuit, Mina pouted as they 6 began descending the mountain. We could have spent some time on the beach, maybe get a tan while we were at it. There are a number of shops that sell designer swimsuits, Mina looked excited at the news. Well, this place may be separated from the rest of the world, that doesn't mean that it's cut off from it. The inhabitants of this island grow and change along with the rest of the world. At Kurama's words, a girl on a moped waved at them as they reached the bottom of the mountain, while another was reading something on one of the newest smartphones that had just recently hit the market. Yeah, and new travels really fast here, Naruto grumbled as many people stopped what they were doing just to watch them group pass, many whispering to each other excitedly and pointing. Sigh, it's like this every single time I come here, everyone pointing and whispering, it really gets annoying. Chuckling at Naruto's annoyed expression, the group began making its way towards the rather large mansion on the cliff, though as they went the 4 newcomers noticed a number of things that many would consider odd. First, while there were only a handful of male Kitsune in the world, it seemed that none were on this island. Second was that everyone they passed would stop and stare at them, before gathering into groups and whispering excitedly to each other. Another odd thing the 4 noticed was that all the girls who appeared to be between 15 to 30 all appeared to glare at them, not in a hateful way, just a jealous glare, though most of the glares were directed at Naruto. Is there a reason everyone seems to be glaring at you, Naruto? Momo asked as she glanced around, a small shiver running down her spine as the glares seemed to intensify. Sigh, they're glaring because they can smell my scent on you 3, and they're all mad that I claimed you 3 as my mates and not them. A small chill ran up his spine, prompting him to walk faster. So, those are his mates? A tall woman asked as she observed Naruto and his group as they made their way to her home. Yes, the 3 girls are classmates of his, and the older woman is one of his teachers, another woman said looking at the folder in her hands. The first girl is Momo yaoyorozu, age 15, she has the quirk creation, which allows her to create anything from the fat in her body, as long as she knows how the object is created and its atomic structure, though it's limited to non-living objects. That could prove useful in the future, the woman said with a perverted giggle, thinking of all the ways she could use this girl's quirk, ignoring the deadpan look she was getting from the other woman. Sai, the second girl, is Ochako Uraraka, age 15, her quirk is zero gravity, it makes whatever she touches lose its gravitational weight, enabling it to float, though when she joins her fingers the pull returns. The second woman read of the information they had on Naruto's mates, and she was rather intrigued by this girl's quirk. Zero gravity, that sounds similar to Nagato's first tale, the first woman must, as she remembered the Kitsune when he was first learning to use his powers. You're right, though hers are vastly different, the woman flipped the page to the next file. The last girl is Mina Shido, age 15, her quirk is acid, she is able to create a powerfully corrosive acid from anywhere on her body and because of her Naruto's newest tail, allows his to also create acid. So, he inherited her power after they mated. Interesting, the woman glanced at the three girls before her eyes moved back to Naruto, wondering if he could also gain powers similar to the first two girls or if the acid was purely coincidental. What about the last woman, she seems rather familiar. That would be Namuri Kayama, better known as the R-rated hero Midnight, age 30, her quirk is known as somnambulist, she emits a powerful sleeping gas from her skin, though it works faster on men. Oh, I remember now, she's one of little Shina's friends, from back when Minato was alive, she remembered Kushina telling her about the woman and the effect she had on men. Yes, she was one of Kushina's female friends, along with Rumi Isagayama, Ryuko Tatsuma, Shino Sasaki, Ryuko Tsuchikawa and Tomoko Shiratoko, all of whom are pro-heroes and have helped Naruto as he was growing up. The first woman smirked as she recalled seeing the women as they all helped Naruto in their own unique way. Well, shall we go and greet our guest? With a nod from the second woman the two left the room they had been sitting in. As the group of six approached the mansion, a small amount tension began to fill the air as nerves about meeting the ruler of Kitsunes began to set in. Naruto, is it always like this when meeting with this Kagaya person? Momo asked trying to break the tension in the air with some light conversation. If you're referring to the tension in the air then yes, Naruto swallowed the lump in his throat. I've met Kagaya a few times and every time there seems to be some strange tension in the air, though for some reason it always seems to lift when you actually meet Kagaya. I wonder why that is. Ochako glanced at Kurama wondering if he knew, only to gain a large sweat drop as he shrugged his shoulders. Well, you can ask her yourself, seeing as we're here. The four female members of the group gaped at the size of the mansion in front of them before their eyes landed on the two figures waiting patiently at the gate surrounding the grounds. The first woman appeared to be in her late 30s, with long flowing red hair that fell past her shoulders like a waterfall and deep violet eyes which held deep affection in them. She was wearing a black kimono with white trimming and was smiling warmly at them. The second woman was, in a word, mesmerizing. She appeared to be about 20, with long flowing silvery white hair and silvery eyes which resembled the moon. She was wearing a white sundress and a large white hat, while also wearing a loving smile. Welcome back Naruto, it's been a long time, Kagaya said, her smile growing as she strolled forward and pulled Naruto into a loving embrace. I'm back Kagaya, Naruto smiled as he returned her hug, feeling the warmth of her affection for him. Momo let out a long sigh as she reclined on the beach chair, setting the book she had, An Introduction to the Kitsune Mating Cycle, to the side before glancing over at Mina and Ochako, both of whom were playing in the water, enjoying the sun. It had been a few hours since they had arrived at Kagaya's island and so far, everything was going rather well. After meeting both Mito and Kagaya, Kagaya had dragged Naruto away to teach him more about his lycanthrope ability and to teach him how to speed up the process. While they were doing that Mito had taken them all to a clothing store and had them choose new swimsuits before taking them to the beach in order to relax. Well, that's one way to relax on the beach, Momo glanced over as Mito approached her wearing a dark purple bikini, her nine tails swinging lazily in the breeze. You're not going to join your friends in the water, seems like a waste of a good swimsuit if you ask me, Momo blushed as she glanced down at her new swimsuit, a black bikini with white strings holding it together. I plan to, I just wanted to learn a little more about Kitsune and wait for Naruto to show up before going in, she muttered the last part shyly, getting a smirk from Mito, she could tell that these girls really cared for Naruto. I see, and I take it to sigh means you've hit a brick wall. Momo nodded her head as she held the book, glancing at the cover. So, what is you so stumped, I might be able to help, she smiled as Momo chuckled a little at her wording. Well, I was wondering about the Kitsune mating cycle, I figured since we're going to become Kitsune ourselves, it would be good to know more about it, Mito nodded in understanding, it was a smart idea, learning everything you could about a group before joining it. The book explains a bit about the mating cycle. Female Kitsune have a cycle that varies depending on the number of tails, 1 to 3 tails go into their cycle every year and stay in heat for about a week unless satisfied by their mate, 4 to 6 tails go into heat every 3 years, 7 tails every 5 years, and 8 tails every 10. Well, that's the basics, Mito could see the annoyance in Momo's expression as she glared at the book. So, what's the problem, if you got all that from that book, then you basically know all about our mating cycle. Well first the book doesn't explain about why there's such a large gap in the number of years for each tail, Momo glanced at Mito's tails in wonder. That's due to the amount of power the Kitsune has, Mito chuckled at the girl's confused look. A Kitsune's mating cycle is dependent on the number of tails they have, which indicate their level of power. When a Kitsune reproduces we lose a lot of power in childbirth, which is used to help the infant grow. The more tails we have, the more power is used, and the longer it takes our bodies to accumulate the power the infants receive. I guess that makes sense, the book did mention that female Kitsune have a secondary source of power. Momo held a thoughtful look for a few seconds before moving on. The book also fails to talk about why it takes years before Kitsune can have another mate after one dies. Mito gained a far-off look at that question, it was not an easy answer. Sigh in simple terms, for Kitsune, our mates are like a drug to us, our bodies become dependent on them for a number of reasons, when they die, the years between mates is like a rehab, as our bodies adjust to not having them, as well as preparing for a new mate. The less tails you have the easier the rehab is, but the more tails the more your body need them, the longer it takes for your body to adjust. Momo was quiet for a number of minutes as she digested what Mito had told her, as well as trying to imagine what that must be like, she shuddered at the thought. Now, if that's all then we should go and enjoy the water with your friends, since I don't think Naruto will be showing up anytime soon. Letting out a sigh and nodding in agreement, Momo followed Mito towards the others. Damn you Kanoka, I'll get you for this, Naruto thought as he swallowed the lump in his throat at the sight of the person sitting in front of him, a small smile, that promised a lot of pain ladder, painted on their face. After greeting Kagaya and Mito at the front gate, Mito had led Momo, Mina and Ochako to enjoy the beach, while Kagaya led Naruto away in order to tell him how to speed up the transformation, which was actually quite simple, all he had to do was mate with them while in his Kitsune form, which was a special form all Kitsune gained after getting their second tail. With the explanation out of the way, Kagaya said she had surprise waiting for him before leading him to his current situation. Sitting in the room he had just entered was none other than his twin sister Naruko. Like Naruto, Naruko was rather tall, with long blonde hair that reached the middle of her back, piercing blue eyes, and stood at an even 6'5". She was wearing a black yukata with a blue flame pattern spiraling up from her feet, while her 9 tails slowly waved behind her. Hello Naruto, it's been a while, while her voice was calm, Naruto tensed, glancing around for an escape, should the need arise. You can stop looking for an escape, Lady Kagaya was kind enough to give us a private room, at her words the door behind Naruto closed with a snap. So, is there a reason you asked Lady Kagaya for a private room? Naruto flinched as Naruko stood up and stalked towards him, before surprising him by pulling him into a warm hug. The talk, why else, Naruto gave her a blank stare. Look I know I can be a little overprotective of you, Naruko chuckled nervously as Naruto's blank stare continued. Alright, very overprotective, but that's because I worry about you, unlike me and Menma, you're in the outside world alone, how can I not be? Shaking his head at his sister's lame response, the two sat down and Naruto began to tell her about his time in the outside world and about all of his mates and the girls he hopes will accept him and join his family. Sigh, you know this is a really bad idea, Satsuki muttered as she appeared out of the torii gate, followed by a number of girls, all of whom had feelings for Naruto. Earlier that morning, Satsuki had, from afar, seen Naruto and the others off, since she wanted to stay as far from Kanoka as possible. As she was preparing to head out to do some training, since Class 1A had the next 3 days off, when something very interesting caught her eye. Peering over the top of the steps leading to the shrine were Haku, Kuritsuchi, Sayu, Jiro and Najire, as well as a number of girls from Class 1B, namely Kendo, Shiozaki, and Pony, as well as Kanoko Komori, Satsuna Tokage and Ryaiko Yanagi. The last 3 surprising her since she didn't think they had been affected by Naruto's pheromones in the same way as the others. After sneaking up and scaring all the girls half to death since they thought they were being crafty, Satsuki was hounded by all of them to follow Naruto and the others, which she reluctantly agreed to since she knew they wouldn't let up until she did, so after waiting for Kanoka to return to the shrine, Satsuki led them to the torii gate and opened it before leading the group through. How is it a bad idea, we're just making sure Naruto's alright, Najire said, as if that made the fact that they had followed Naruto uninvited to a holy island. It's because we came uninvited, the Kitsune of the group muttered as they all took in the side of the island. This place is sacred and only people who have been invited by the ruler of the island are really allowed to come here. If it's so bad then why did you agree to bring us? Ribbit Sayu asked as Satsuki began leading them down a narrow pass that would apparently allow them to reach the place Naruto was staying without being seen. Because, if I didn't then you idiots would never drop it until I did that and I'm worried about Naruto, unlike the idiot, I can tell when Kanoka is lying about something, which means one of his siblings is here on the island and I'd bet money that it's his sister Naruko. The others all shared a glance before, at Satsuki's signal, they quieted down in order to better sneak around. Well now, it seems little Satsuki has decided to pay me a visit and she appears to have brought a few friends, Kagaya chuckled as she sat on the roof of her manor, enjoying the sight of Naruto's mates playing in the water. What should we do about them? Asked a boy who looked exactly like Naruto, except that his hair and tails were a deep crimson color and his eyes were a deep emerald green. Why not give them a good scare, not that it will work on Satsuki, then bring all of them here, Kagaya smirked. She could tell that all of these girls had feelings for Naruto, even if they had yet to act on it, and she knew from Naruto's scent on them that he cared for all of them, though he was rather dense when it came to how feelings of romance. Oh, and Menma, don't hurt any of them, or I'll personally see to your punishment. The now named Menma shuddered at the small smile on Kagaya's face, before nodding and heading off to complete his assignment. Oh, so that's why Taya is here. Naruto had just finished explaining about the incident at the USJ, which had somehow led to him having to come to the island. So yeah, and I've still got to come up with a suitable punishment for Karen. Back at the Golden Paw, Karen froze in her cleaning, as a sudden chill covered her from head to toe, letting her know that Naruto had not forgotten about her punishment. Oh, I can always do that later, why don't we go, and you can meet my mates, slowly nodding her head, having already planned to talk with the three, Naruko stood up and untied her yukata, letting it fall to the floor, revealing that she was wearing a deep violet-colored bikini with neon orange hearts on it. So, what do you think? She struck a sexy pose, which enhanced her C-cup-sized breast, before turning scarlet as Naruto, a smirk on his face, stood up and kissed her on the forehead, before heading out the door, leaving her fuming, since he didn't answer her question outright. Naruto, you're finally here, Ochako, who was getting in a bit of extra training by floating above the waves, glanced over at Mina's shout before falling into the crashing tides. The reason, walking next to Naruto, was what appeared to be a female version of the Kitsune hero in training. Who's the cute girl with you? Mina asked as she inspected the girl, who was obviously related to Naruto, the girl obviously inspecting them as well. I bet she's your sister. Naruto and Naruko both blinked at Ochako's guess, Naruko because she thought the girl was an airhead, and Naruto because he didn't think Ochako would be the one to guess that. That can't be, Kanoka told us his sister was in Hawaii. Naruto chuckled at Momo, reminding him that he needed to get Kanoka back for that. He would probably paint her a lime green color, while painting her shrine a sandy brown color. Back at her shrine, Kanoka froze as a chill fell over her. Actually, Ochako's right, Momo, Ochako, Mina, allow me to introduce you all to my twin sister. This is Naruko Uzumaki, the youngest of the three of us. Naruko glared at him for his introduction of her, before turning back to the three heroines in training, giving them a once-over. Mina was wearing a dark purple one-piece with a diamond pattern showing of her toned stomach and back. Ochako was wearing a pink bikini with frills on her waist and breast. Momo was wearing a black bikini with white strings holding it together. It's nice to meet you, my name is Naruko Uzumaki, I hope we can all get along. She bowed her head in greeting, allowing the three of them to get a good look at her. Wow, I never thought we'd get a chance to meet Naruto's siblings while here, Midnight said as she approached the teens from where she had been sunbathing, getting a blush out of Naruto, seeing as she was wearing a string bikini that barely covered her, showing why she deserved her title as the R-rated hero. It's nice to meet you, I'm Namuri Kayama, otherwise known as the R-rated hero Midnight. You're really showing of why you got the title of R-rated hero Midnight Sensei. Namuri blinked at Mina's teasing tone, before noticing Naruto was looking away from her, his entire body glowing red, before a teasing smirk made its way to her face. I see what you mean, she moved over and wrapped her arms around Naruto, a seductive gleam in her eyes. So, Naruto, are you enjoying the view? It must be nice being surrounded by so many sexy women. With steam coming out of his ears, Naruto bolted towards the ocean, turning a deep azure blue before diving into the waves, getting a laugh from the five. Well, that was fun, but I think we should help. Midnight was paused and glanced in the direction of the yell where the five and Naruto, who had poked his head out of the ocean, saw Tsuyu Asui and Kinoko Komori running towards them while a male Kitsune who looked like Naruto, just with red hair, pursued them. What are you guys doing here? Ochako asked in shock at the sight of two of their schoolmates running towards them, before the five women let out a startled shriek as a large gust of wind blew past them, followed by a loud impact as Naruto and the other boy collided, their fists being the connecting point. So, it seems I was right, I figured that if Naruko was here, you would be as well. Menma, the now named Menma smirked at Naruto before the two created shock waves as they exchanged a few blows. So, what exactly are you doing, chasing them like that? They're intruders and Lady Kagaya ordered me to capture them unharmed. Naruto glanced over his shoulder at the two who were panting behind Midnight. I have already captured their companions, but these two managed to give us the slip. Well, that's good, if they hadn't, then I might not have the chance to fight you during my visit. The two boys exchanged matching smirks before both began clashing again, sending out shock waves and causing sand to explode into the air, which was drawing a lot of attention, seeing as a large crowd was gathering at the sound of the fight, before splitting into two groups, one cheering for Naruto, while the other cheered for Menma. So, what exactly are you two of you doing here? Momo asked Atua as Naruto and Menma clashed. That's what I would like to know as well, Midnight gave the two a small scolding glance. This island is sealed off from the rest of the world and unless you're a Kitsune it's impossible to get here, so how did you two manage it and why? The two girls shared a nervous glance before hanging their head in embarrassment, realizing that they were not going to get out of this without some sort of punishment. "We heard that Naruto was bringing you guys here and were curious, so we followed you to the Torii gate," Ribbit Sayu said, slowly turning red at the attention she was getting. "Since both hero classes got time off after the incident at the USJ, we all wanted to talk to Naruto about our feelings and where we can go from there," Kinoko said, trying to hide behind her bangs. "After watching all of you pass through the gate, we asked Satsuki to bring us here too, but we didn't know it was forbidden until after we got here," Naruko sighed. She should have guessed that Satsuki brought them. "I'm guessing you were going down the narrowed path down the mountains when Menma and a group of vixens appeared and caught you, Menma probably fighting Satsuki before knocking her out." Both girls nodded at Naruko's accurate assumption. "And none of the others with you were harmed?" Again the two nodded, getting a long tired sigh from the Kyuubi class vixen. "I'm guessing you know, or at least have a guess, as to what's going on." Naruko again nodded as she began rubbing her temples in annoyance. If Kagaya was planning what she thought she was planning, that would mean more competition for her brother's affection, not something she wanted to deal with. Sayu Asui stared wide-eyed in both shock and arousal. The shock was that laying all around the large room she had been led to were all of the girls that had come to the Kitsune Island uninvited, as well as Naruto's sister, Naruko, Midnight and the three that had been invited. The arousal came from the fact that all of them were out cold from pure pleasure, naked as they were born, and all leaking Naruto's reproductive fluids. The reason for her reaction was rather simple. After Naruto and his brother had their spar, as they called it, the group had all been escorted to the large mansion on the cliffs, where they found Satsuki being scolded by the ruler of the island, one Kagaya Otsutsuki. Once Satsuki had been scolded, all the girls had been led away to a room to await punishment from trespassing on sacred ground. Once they were all in the room, they waited for about an hour before Kagaya herself had come to explain their punishment, which would normally have been execution. However, due to a unique trait Naruto had, they would be given community service until Naruto returned to UA, though the condition for the community service was that they all had to become Kitsune. After giving them their option, she escorted Satsuki away in order to let them discuss becoming Kitsune, since she informed them that if they did, there would be no way to return to normal. Half an hour later, Kagaya returned for their answer, and after all of them had agreed to become Kitsune, better that than death, she began leading each girl away, one at a time before returning for the next. The wait time was normally half an hour, though sometimes it stretched with the longest time being an hour and a half, and now she knew why the time was so long. Standing in the middle of the room, currently deep inside an unconscious Kinoko, was Naruto, though he appeared to be different. He stood a little taller, she estimated he was close to 7 foot in height. From his waist down, he was covered in sleek golden blonde fur, with 7 multicolored foxtails waving around behind him. His hands were clawed with fur covering them to his elbow, his ears were pointed, and his hair was wilder. The most shocking thing about his new appearance wasn't the fact he appeared more feral, it was his eyes. They were glowing bright red with pure lust. "I guess I should explain how your punishment is going to work." Sayu flinched at Kagaya's words, since what she was witnessing appeared to be more of a reward, in a perverted way. "As I told you, trespassing on this island without permission is normally punished by death. However, thanks to Naruto, you can become a Kitsune, and the punishment will be changed to community service." "But we all agreed to become Kitsune." Sayu's eyes widened as something she had read about in a book about legends from before quirks entered her mind. "Does this have something to do with Naruto being a Hanyu?" "Very good, yes, because Naruto's a Hanyu. He awakened an old ability that has long since died out, the lycanthrope gene." Sayu blinked at that. She had heard the word before somewhere, but couldn't remember where or what exactly it was. The lycanthrope gene was most commonly seen through one specific species, the wolf, which is where it got its name, though they weren't the only ones to have it, just the most common. "Werewolves," Kagaya smirked, impressed that the girl knew about the legendary yokai, since in this modern world with quirks most people didn't know about them, especially since the gene died out around the appearance of quirks, and the werewolf clans were driven to near extinction before the last remaining 100 migrated to a small island and erected a barrier around it, much like she had, the only difference being that they cut themselves off completely from the outside world. "Very good, not many know the term." Sayu blushed at the praise. "Yes, though as I said, they weren't the only ones to have this gene. Sometime before the school year began, Naruto awakened it, which was reviled when he mated with your classmates Momo and Ochako. The first day of hero training." Sayu's eyes widened, "So that's what happened when Naruto and Momo left her in class." "Yes, unfortunately Naruto had just started his mating cycle and took your friend, though she apparently agreed to it beforehand, though I doubt she expected it to happen so soon." She chuckled, remembering when she heard about Naruto gaining this ability. "We learned that when Naruto mates with someone, he transfers a small fragment of his power into them, which slowly begins changing them into Kitsune, though the reason I called them here was to teach them how to speed up the transformation." Sayu blinked at that before something strange caught her eye. In the corner where Momo was lying next to Kendo, both girls had an extra feature that she had never seen before. A black kitsune tail was slowly growing from Momo, while an orange one grew from Kendo. Normally the transformation takes a while, though when Naruto mates with someone while in his kitsune from the transformation happens within 24 hours of receiving the gene. Sayu gasped at that, that's why Naruto looked different, it was to speed up the process of turning them all into kitsune. As part of the punishment, we gave each girl an aphrodisiac in order to help with the process before locking them in here with Naruto, and each of them took it willingly, and you can see the results. Are you going to give me the aphrodisiac as well? Sayu asked, getting a small cup as an answer to her question. Because of your quirk, we have to use a different dosage on you, otherwise Naruto might accidentally hurt you, not something we want, since it would hurt Naruto as well. Sayu nodded, taking the cup which was filled with a pink liquid that smelled strongly of grapes, before downing the liquid and slowly walking into the room. As the door to the room closed behind Sayu, Naruto gently pulled out of Kanoko and sat her on the ground before turning to face his next mate. I am so sorry everyone, Naruto was standing before all of the girls, his head bowed in apology for what had happened the night before. It's alright Naruto really, we knew what was going to happen, and we agreed to it, Haku said with a warm smile, trying to ease or erase any guilt he may have had. That may be true, but I'm still sorry, I had no idea that she would give you all a kitsune aphrodisiac. He glanced at them all before a small tint of pink appeared in his cheeks, seeing as all of them were wearing bath robes. Naruto it's fine, like Haku said we were told it was coming, though I would have preferred it to be more romantic. Everyone chuckled a little at Najire's choice of words. Still, it's cool that we're all kitsune, now you can train us as kitsune. She's right, we also need to talk about how our relationship will progress from here, Shiozaki said, getting a nod from everyone. I mean, we've all talked at school, mainly during lunch, and we all know how we feel about you, but how do you feel about all of us? Naruto paled as the eyes of every girl landed on him, waiting for an answer. Honestly, I do care for all of you, and I'm glad you all agreed to become my mates, even if the circumstances weren't the way any of us desired. All of them gave a small chuckle at that. But I hope that we can all get along, and that each of you will allow me time to get to know you better personally. I think we can arrange that. Everyone turned to see Midnight entering the room with Mito behind her. I just got off the phone with the principal, letting him know that we now have more kitsune in the school, and while I don't think he's upset, he does want to remind Naruto about taking responsibility for all of the girls here. Don't worry, I plan to, everyone smiled at the confidence in his voice. As for those of you who came without permission, the principal and Lady Kagaya had a long talk about your punishment. All of the girls, minus Momo, Mina and Ochako tensed, wondering what their punishment would be. Instead of community service, you will all have a week's worth of detention, during which time you will all go through intensive training to learn to control your new abilities. They all shivered at the sadistic smirk on her face. You will also be writing lengthy and detailed apology letter to Lady Kagaya for trespassing on sacred ground without permission from her and Naruto. Yes ma'am, Naruto chuckled a little at the depression in their voice, and while he felt bad for them, there was nothing he could really do to help them avoid punishment. Good, now that that's all taken care of you all need to finish eating, then meet down on the beach. We're going to start training each of you as kitsune, and doing what we can to help you understand your new abilities before you return to UA. With her piece said Mito turned and left the room, causing both Naruto and Satsuki, who saw the smirk she had, to shiver in dread and anticipation. Wow, this is amazing, Naruto smirked as Ochako hovered in the air, seeing as her quirk had evolved after becoming a kitsune. For you maybe, Naruto gave Jiro an understanding look as she held a pair of earmuffs over her ears. Because of her quirk, her hearing leapt to a new level and was giving her a massive headache. Man, my head is killing me, are you sure there's nothing I can do until my ears adjust? Sorry, Jiro, if we knew of a way to help, we would, just be glad no one's shooting of fireworks. When I got one for all it boosted all of my senses as well. I thought I was going to go deaf the first time I heard some after getting it, after changing them. He had told them all about one for all and its origin, which shocked them all, before explaining their theory about one for all, activating the lycanthrope gene. Jiro brightened a little remembering that Naruto had also gone through the pain of having his hearing enhanced. It made the pain she was feeling a little more bearable, before a sweet aroma filled her nose. Glancing at her feet, Jiro saw a strange white flower which was giving of a pleasant aroma that was slowly easing her pain. Does that help? Shiozaki asked as she approached them, getting a nod from Jiro. That good to hear, I'm not entirely sure which flower that is, but I know it gives of a pleasant smell that helps numb the senses. This particular breed aimed more toward sound than anything. Wow, that's cool, Naruto glanced at the flower in interest, enjoying the scent that was wafting from it. I take it this is from your powers evolving. Shiozaki blushed and nodded at the question. Naruto gained a small smile before glancing around at all of the girls training in their new kitsune form and their quirks. For some, such as Tsayu, Mina, Haku, Kuritsuchi, Najire, Kinoko, Ryuko and Namuri, their quirks remained the same, so the practiced getting used to their Kitsune forms. For the other their quirks had all evolved with which would have happened over time, but the Kitsune transformation had speed up the process. Ochako's power had grown so that instead of having to touch everything, she could cause everything within a 5-foot radius of her to lose its gravity, though she became sick faster with more objects inside the radius. Momo could now create things faster and with less body fat, no matter how big. Giro's sense of hearing was enhanced, and her tail acted as another jack. She was also able to produce blast of sounds by roaring while in her Kitsune form. Kendo, while in her Kitsune form, was able to increase the size of her entire body, becoming a literal giant. Shiozaki was now able to grow different fruits and flowers on her vines, as long as she knew about the fruit or flower in question. Pony could now fire her horns at a quicker speed and control more of them at once, and Setsuna could now split her body for a longer period of time and was able to regenerate faster. So, Naruto, how do you think your mom's going to react to learning you now have 17 mates? Naruto paled at Mina's question as she hopped onto his back with a mischievous smirk on her face. Well, she's probably going to be expecting a grandkid from one of you sooner or later. At this all of the girls stared at him, their eyes widened, their faces glowing at what Naruto was saying hit them, and they began imagining themselves holding a baby with Naruto standing behind them, a smile on his face, before they each passed out from the blood rushing to their head. It was good to see you again, Kagaya. Kagaya smiled warmly as she personally saw Naruto and his new sculpt to the Torii gate. Though next time please refrain from scaring my friends. I make no promises. Naruto simply gave her a blank look before she pulled him into a deep kiss. Next time I summon you though, we'll have plenty of fun, just the two of us. Naruto gave her a small smirk before following the rest of the group through the torii, back to the outside world. Are you alright with this, Lady Kagaya? Naruko asked from behind the 10-tailed Kitsune, who simply tilted her head and gave the young Uzumaki a small smile, before heading back to her mansion in order to watch her favorite show, Naruto. Everyone, morning homeroom is about to begin, take your seats. Everyone inside class 1. A groaned Ida started on his daily routine of order, especially since everyone was already seated. You know this really is getting old, Naruto sighed as he slumped in his chair, getting a nod of agreement from everyone. I'm only trying to help keep the class in order, since you won't do it, Ida grumbled out, avoiding eye contact with everyone. And as I said when you all made me class president, I'm not interested in leading anyone. Everyone chuckled at that at the reminder before everyone glanced at the door. Morning, Mr. Izawa, you're back, everyone shouted in surprise, since the last they had heard he was in bad condition. Talk about dedication. Yes, and it looks like you all have been keeping up with your training over the last few days. His eyes flickered around the room, mainly glancing at each of the girls in his class before landing on Naruto. But that doesn't mean you can take it easy, because your fight is far from over. The whole class tensed up at his words. UA's sports festival is fast approaching, that's so ordinary, the class yelled in shock at his serious expression, though you could literally feel the excitement in the air. The UA sports festival, this could be fun, Naruto chuckled, before freezing as an uneasy feeling settled over him, as if he had a giant target painted on his back. Alright, we're gonna do our best at the sports festival, right guys? Naruto chuckled at Ochako's determination to excel in the upcoming festival. It was a refreshing change of pace from the bubbly girl's normal attitude. Ochako sure seems fired up, doesn't she? Momo smiled as she moved to stand next to Naruto, seeing as they had a meeting for the student council, which Naruto was trying to skip out on, again. Yeah, but that's not always a bad thing now, is it? Naruto tried to sneak away from the creating Kitsune, only to stop as he felt a tug on his tail. What's going on here? The entirety of Class 1A's attention was drawn to the door at the sound of Ochako's startled cry. The reason, the classroom was being blocked by the rest of the first years, who managed to get into UA. Why are you all blocking the door? Isn't it obvious? Satsuki appeared next to Ochako, an annoyed look on her face, which was causing a number of the other students to recoil in shock. They're here to scout out the competition. She glanced over at Uraraka before glancing at the rest of the class. We're the first years who survived a villain attack, not to mention the class with the first Kitsune in the school's history. We've already got a target on our backs, and all of these losers want a glimpse of what they're up against. Then I say they should drink it all in while they can. Everyone turned to Naruto, whose eyes were glowing red in his excitement. The sports festival, while being a good way to show off our skill, is also one big test, with a chance for people who didn't make it into the hero course to join us. At this point Haku and Kuritsuchi, who had moved to stand behind Naruto, gained challenging smirks on their faces, their eyes glowing, bright white for Haku and bright red for Kuritsuchi. However, you would all do well to remember this, those of us who made it into the hero course, both class 1 and 1B, worked our asses off to get here, so if you really think you have what it takes to join us then by all means, but unless you come at us with everything you have, you should remember your place. With his piece said Naruto, followed by Momo, Haku and Kuritsuchi, pushed past all of the other first years, who parted to let the 4 intimidating students through. Was that really necessary, Naruto? Momo asked in disapproval as they walked down the hall towards the student council room, the other 2 having left for their detention. Probably not, but didn't you see it? Momo glanced over, waiting for him to explain. There was a fire in the eyes of everyone that had gathered back there, that fire grew after my little speech, her eyes widened in understanding before a small smile grew. Naruto was fulfilling his role as class president by inspiring people, and not just in his own class, but in all of the others as well. The UA Sports Festival, I can't wait to see what happens. What if Naruto x Momo yaoyorozu x Ochako fem sasuke harem end here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.